Did we start?
Yes, so let's begin, Aniket.
Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to this session by Ecological Society. I am Parul here. So just a brief introduction about Ecological Society and our founder, Dr. Prakash Ghore. Ecological Society was established by Dr. Prakash Ghore in 1982. He was a visionary economist, ecologist, and an ornithologist. Ghore sir had set up Ecological Society to work in the field of ecological research and education. He had set up this flagship program in sustainable management of natural resources and nature conservation. We have now completed 27 batches of this course, and over 1,000 participants have completed this course in the last 27 years. They are now a part of this community called Friends of Ecological Society. Admission to our course in this sustainable management of natural resources and nature conservation is now open. You may refer to our website for more details. So now with this flagship program, we are now starting a new stream for school students and college students. Aniket will introduce you further. Aniket, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Parul. Hello, everyone. So as Parul mentioned, Ecological Society is working with various groups. We are spreading ecological literacy to various professionals. One of those groups is administrative officers, and we are working with college professors. We are also working with journalists, architects, and the recent addition to that is school children and teachers and parents. So, this initiative was started recently, 3-4 months back, and very first step we have taken is uh, about the connecting children with nature, and we are doing this through our nature discovery walks, the and various other experiential learning experiences through which we are doing this. Uh, we have also identified some 16 different biodiversity rich locations in the Pune city, and we are taking children to these locations for enhancing their biodiversity appreciation. And another thing is, we have also created a small network of nature educators within Pune city. Uh, so this particular session is a part of capacity building program for those nature educators. And we thought that this is very essential skill for everyone. And that's why we kept it open for all others like you people. Uh, Another important thing is today's our today's facilitator is young naturalist named Sayee Girdhari. She is also part of our nature educator group, and she's also project coordinator of Season Watch, which is a citizen science tool from NCF, Nature Conservation Foundation. Uh, we will, without wasting any time, we will start with the session, basics of uh, tree identification and phenology. Sai?
Thank you, Aniket. Thank you, Parul. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar on a Sunday afternoon. I'm very excited to share this workshop with you, and I hope you find it useful. And I also want to tell you that it's only the beginning into looking at trees and trying to identify them. This workshop doesn't ensure that we, become experts immediately. But it's a good starting point, and this will give us some tools to look at trees in a systematic manner to help us make us a bit less scared of trees and approaching them, and you know learn to look at them in a particular manner and observe them. So let me share my screen and take you through this 3-hour journey in the basics of tree identification and phenology. So my name is Sayee, as Aniket mentioned. I've studied masters in botany. And one of my favorite things, or the things that got me into botany, was identifying plants. There are many, many plants in this world, lakhs of them, and each one cannot be studied individually and remembered as an individual separately. So these plants were grouped into units called families. And these families have certain features that if we learn and remember, we can look at any new plant that we come across and try to fit in that new plant into these families. So instead of, that's how or plant identification is approached. And when I learned that plants can be looked at so carefully and their features can be identified and described, and then they can be grouped, it blew my mind. And it sort of opened this whole world of plants and made it so easy and so interactive for me. So I've always been interested in systematics, the field of botany that deals with identifying and classifying plants and naming them. And that's how, I thought, because it's so fun, it was so fun for me because of my teachers. I hope to share that joy and fun with everyone whenever I get the opportunity. So this is an attempt at that. Another thing is, I'm going to call it tree identification, but this is pretty basic botany. And we're going to focus on trees because we are a little more familiar with trees and likely to know names of trees, and they're easy to identify, rather easy to look at. They're not too minute to observe the features and so on. So we're going to focus on trees, but this applies to any plant that we have around us. And as we practice more and as we learn more, we can feel comfortable with identifying any plant using these tools. Phenology will come to it in the second half of our workshop. And this is a method of engaging with plants. So even if we're not able to identify the plant, or once we've identified the plant more precisely, what do we do after that, right? So if you want to engage and interact with that plant again and again, phenology is a great tool for doing that. And that's why I thought I'll introduce it after we learn how to identify plants and reach names of the plant a little bit. So that, to ensure that none of us fall asleep in this afternoon session, I would like you to use the chat box to share your thoughts, share your comments, share your questions. And for now, what motivates you to identify trees? Why did you think, okay, let me attend this session today and learn how to identify trees? I would like to read actually your thoughts on this. Please use the chat box, type in your answers. What motivated me to look at plants was actually my botany professors at Ramnaran Ruia College. And I had never looked at plant the way these teachers did. And I never knew plants could be looked at in this manner, with so much appreciation, so much love, so much wonder. And that, watching someone love plants just made me also fall in love with plants. So that's how I got into this field. But after that, I think what motivates me is looking at their evolution and the features, and so smartly they exist, and they're managed, and they are utilized by the plant, and they're modified by the plant to make the most of the surroundings and to survive in the best way possible. So I'm going to read some of your comments. It's to excite to conservation, increase people awareness of the diversity surrounding them. That's a great answer. To study the tree felling dockets while site visit. Okay, wow, I don't know what this means. It's a game, very fun to know what's around us, and I love taxonomy too. Thank you, Shruti. I love trees and tree architecture. Oh, that's a really good point. Because I love trees. They're part of me and I'm part of them. Beautiful. The beauty of flowers, yes. They say flowers are like signatures of trees, and if a tree has flowers, nothing like it. We can quite easily identify the tree. Love for nature, identify them like we identify our friends and be able to address them by the name. Fantastic. Once I identify the tree, feels like a friend. Next time I see a tree, it gives me joy. I like to know when to expect the tree to flower and fruit, step out and open to enjoy the blooms. Beautiful. They are saviors. We should know about them. Absolutely. Understand and able to identify. Yes. Yeah, identifying them does help us understand their lives and their history and their journey on this planet. Easy to study and propagate them. Yes, that's true. Names of plants and trees, and I could never imagine what they look like. As I grew older, I longed to see the names of the trees I could see every day. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Becoming more familiar with our natural spaces, learn new things, especially about nature and wilderness. Indeed, by the root system. That's interesting. Love for botany when I became a teacher, to teach something new to my children. So What better way to learn? Absolutely. Trees are amusing, endangered species, work for their protection. Gorgeous. Okay, you come from really excellent and deep-seated beliefs and motivations for plant or tree identification. I'm very happy to read all of these comments. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so let's dive into the program today. The plant for today is to try and identify and observe plants. So identification happens through observations. One takeaway is to look at plants so carefully and so keenly that the plant should blush at as to how much attention it's getting. Yeah, so let's try and do that, and then reach and gather tools for identifying them. So we will start with what to see in a tree, which of course you're going to tell me. Then we'll dive a bit into botany basics, some leaf type, flower type, fruit types, and how to use these types and features to identify plants which are placed in different families. So we're not going to look at each plant like I mentioned. We're going to look at the features of the families. And we're going to learn 5 such families, which are very easy to identify. They have many, many species around us, especially in the cities. And lastly, like I mentioned, we're going to look at the phenology as well. So let's go. And again, I ask you to tell me, what do you see in a tree? What's the first thing you notice when you look at a plant? Please use the chat box. Leaves. Leaves, trunk, leaves, canopy, leaves, foliage, flowers, flower, crown, leaves, leaf, bark. Size of the leaves, beautiful. Flower, trunk, flowers, bark. Height of the tree, yes. Texture of the trunk, beautiful. Leaf size, leaf margin. Oh, that's very specific. Fruit and flowers, structure, that's great. Branches, the way leaves grow, leaves, canopy, shape of the tree. Leaf arrangement, trunk color, colorful flowers, color of the fruit, smell. Anything else? Leaf density, oh great. Structure of the branches, stems, fragrance, yes. Tree bark and the roots, yeah. Awesome. How much it spread? Birds around, okay. Yes. Super. So you've actually summarized. Can you see the whole screen? Up here says canopy. If you cannot see this, I don't know how to hide this. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so here is canopy. Canopy, we look at the shape and the spread of the tree, and we can describe it as shape of the canopy is round, it's spreading, unruly, doesn't have a specific shape. It can be oval, it can be conical, it can be open. Open meaning the branches are very, very widely spaced, and there's a lot of room to look at the sky from between the branches and the leaves. It can be weeping, so the branches could be dangling and drooping down. It can be a vase-shaped or straight or irregular. So canopy shape can be described, and it's one of the features that we observe in trees when we first look at them. Branching patterns, some of you mentioned. It can be spiral, like spokes of a wheel. There can be vertical branching. They can be trident-like. So each point of growth, there are 2 branches coming out. So it looks like a trident. It can be irregular, which means there is no particular pattern in their branching, etc. Bark, some of you mentioned that you like to look at the texture and the color of the bark, which is precisely what I've written on this slide. So we're looking at these things because before we dive into all the specifications of leaves and flowers and fruits, we can actually use these features to identify some of the trees around us. And to give you an example, to identify trees from the canopy, this is a tree that all of us are familiar with, right? It's called false ashok or asupalav or ashok or mast tree. And it typically grows into this conical kulfi shape canopy. And when we look at this, we're sure to say that it's an ashok tree. We don't even need to think about the botany of the tree and what family it belongs to, etc. We just know straight up what species of tree it is, right? Rain is another tree that we often have around us everywhere. It's this huge tree with a umbrella-shaped canopy and with spreading branches. It's leafy. It has pink powder puff-like flowers. So this canopy, when we look up and we don't see the sky, is when we can say we're under a rain tree. Banyan tree, again, is unmistakable. There is no other tree that quite grows like a banyan tree. And looking at the canopy, we can just say it's a banyan tree. And then we also have some conifers or pines, which have, a specific conical canopy. And that can tell us that this is a group of trees called conifers or cone-bearing trees, which are usually found at high elevations, cold regions, where there's snowfall, and so on. So these are just a very few examples of how canopies can be used to identify trees. But, it
Sorry,
helps
ma'am,
us.
what would be the term that we would describe to for banyan's canopy then?
Banyan has like a spreading canopy, but it's more to do with these roots that hang from the tree.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, we have branching pattern. Like I gave you some ideas of, I mentioned some terms where there's branching from like a cycle spoke, spokes of a wheel, which means there are many branches that originate from the same point on the trunk. So if this tree we look at, it's a Madagascar almond, and it's an ornamental tree that's often planted in gardens, along the roads, in the medians of the roads, etc. And it's an exotic tree, but it has this very typical branching pattern that if you find it, you can quite surely say that it's the Madagascar almond tree, or it's nothing like, it can be distinguished from other trees. We have Kadamba, where if you stand close to the tree and look up, you can see the branches spiraling up, and it's a very characteristic type of branching of this tree. Mexican lilac or Undir Mari or Giripushpa or Gliricidia. We often, we find it a little tricky to identify this tree, but one short way of telling is main trunk goes like this. First branching happens like this, and second branching goes straight up vertically. It's called vertical branching. So Mexican lilac or Gliricidia has this vertical kind of branching, which makes it easy to identify the tree even when it's completely leafless, flowerless, fruitless, etc. So that's how branching pattern can help us identify, especially during seasons like now or winters when the trees tend to be leafless. Trident shaped branching can be seen in tree of heaven or mahanim or maharuk. And this is a very typical branching pattern that can be seen. Each point or each node on the trunk, node is where all the growth happens, all the branches, leaves come out. And each node has two sides of the node developed together. So there is a three main trunk and two branches that grow in tree of heaven. So this is how branching pattern of some trees can be used to identify them. Bark, of course, we have Ain or Indian laurel, and it has this crocodile back like bark. We have Arjun, which has a peeling bark, a very smooth, glossy, lustrous bark that can very easily give away its identity. Devil's tree or Saptaparani is a bark which is dark brown and sort of textured, but it has these dots on it, which are called lenticels. Those dots are breathing pores for the tree. So there are many trees that have this, but in urban context, I think there's no other bark tree with a bark quite like this. White silk cotton, even if the tree is quite old, it can possibly have a green bark. Red silk cotton has a spiny bark. It has prickles on them. Actually, botanically, spines, prickles, and thorns are different features, but we're not going to dig into the depth of these meanings. So I'm going to interchange these terms and get scolded from my teacher later. But let's move on with it. So red silk cotton has a prickly bark. It has these bulbous base and a pointy tip, sort of thorns everywhere on the trunk. And if the tree is very, very old, then they lose these thorns. But when most of the times they do have these thorns. Ghost tree, or I keep forgetting what it's called in any other language. But ghost tree is a tree that's named so because of its very pale and almost shiny and glowing bark. And it's smooth, and during the dry seasons, it also peels off, revealing a even smoother, even whiter bark. So some trees have very signature characteristics bark, and even if they're not very characteristic and they can't be described the way these barks are described, more you look at a tree, more you'll get familiarized with what its bark looks like, and you can identify the tree from the bark also. Now, other features other than the canopy and the branching pattern and the bark, we can also look for secretion. Somebody mentioned smell also. Surfaces of leaves and even bark for that matter, and special features like thorns, prickles, dots on the trunk or dots on the leaves, glands on the leaves, pits in the leaves, and wings also. So sometimes, for example, in lemon, the petiole or the stalk of the leaf will have another small leaf-like structure that you can see here, and that's called a winged petiole. So anything that looks abnormal on a tree, and that abnormality can be found on multiple other leaves across the tree, is when we can say it's a special feature of the tree. Otherwise, if a single leaf has it, then it's not a feature. It's just, some mutation, some anomaly in that particular leaf. But if that structure is seen all over the canopy in many of the leaves of the tree, then we can say it's a feature of that species, right? Coming back to secretions, if you pluck a leaf or pluck a twig or break a branch, we can sometimes see exudation, some bleeding of sort, which can be watery, can be colorless, it can be milky, white, it can be yellow. It can also have color like this. This is a teak tree, and if you rub or crush the young leaves of a teak tree, you get this kind of reddish dye on your hand. And that's a sure shot way of knowing if a small sapling is of a teak. So these secretions also help us identify the family of the tree and possibly also the species that the plant belongs to. Smell can be lemony, fruity. Sometimes the leaves will smell like the fruit that it yields. Sometimes it can be pungent, like lantana or tulsi. I mean, it's not pungent exactly, but it's a strong aromatic, oily sort of smell. But it can be just leafy. Not all leaves have very peculiar smell. But it's always helpful to crush and smell a leaf and describe that smell or use that smell to identify the leaf. Then we look at leaf surfaces, and underside and underside of the leaf and the upper side of the leaf can have different surfaces. So it's best to turn it around and see what's going on. And describe it as the leaves were rough or leaves were smooth and glossy or they were hairy. And if the hair were too thick and very close to each other and possibly white in color, it can be described as woolly. So this is the way to also observe, like I said, observe a plant really, really closely and identify all of these features that can be found on the plant. And they also help us reach the family or even the species altogether. This structure here is a special feature called a Domacia, and it's a pit in the leaf that often acts as houses for ants. So plants have those features to attract ants, to have ants roam around them on their trunks and on their branches and canopies. And if an animal tries to eat the leaves, then these ants will go on that animal and start biting it because the animal is destroying the ant's house. And that's how the tree gets protection from herbivory, from being eaten. And that's why some trees have this adaptation. Another such feature is these nectar glands. It's literally like tiny pools of nectar, a sweet liquid that again attracts a lot of ants and they keep roaming around and protecting the tree. So this is found in a shirish tree, and this is found in the Madagascar almond tree that we saw earlier. So it's quite, when we find such features, we can also learn how these trees interact with other animals around them and how they're using animals around them for their protection or for their benefit. Yeah, so trees are really, really smart in that sense. And that's one of the things that is quite underrepresented, but extremely fascinating about plants. Now, okay, let me look at the chat box really quickly. The difference between false ashok and genuine ashok. We can take these kind of questions after the break when we're sort of trying to ease back into our session. But that's a good question, and please hold on to that. Hulu, yes, thank you, Karnika. Circular urens, of course, is its scientific name. Okay. Any chart for the bark and the canopy types? I don't have a chart as such, but that's a good idea. We can make one. Thank you, Parul, for the idea. I don't have one right now, though. Okay. Now, are you all with me? Can you show a thumbs up if things have not gotten boring? if I've not put everyone to sleep. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we will dive into my favorite subject of all times, botany. And we're going to look at basics of botany. Botany is basically looking at plants closely, giving them fancy names that nobody can remember. But of course, you're not going to use those names and make it very, very simple for us to understand and follow what we want to look at in plants. Yeah. So essentially, we're going to look at leaf type or leaves, flowers, and fruits. Now, flowers and fruits are not always present on the tree. They're seasonal phenomena. They come and go in particular seasons. So we rely a lot on the leaves to identify our plants, right? And when there are no leaves, then we rely on bark and branching pattern, everything that we've discussed so far. So in leaves, we're going to look at leaf type, leaf arrangement, and features that are around leaves like stipules and latex or exudation when we pluck a leaf and so on. In flowers, we're going to look at a little bit at the position, arrangement, symmetry, number of petals, arrangement of organs. I know it sounds a bit scary, but there's just a one slide about this, and that will give us a nice overview of what to look at when it comes to flowers. And in fruits, we're going to look at type of fruit and form, which I'll come to later. And dehiscence is basically opening of a fruit. So fruits are organs of trees that or plants or that house seeds. And the point is that the fruit is taken far, far away, the seed is taken far, far away from the parent. And that can be done in various ways. One of the ways is that fruit dries so much that it cracks open or splits open or bursts open. Yeah, and this opening of a fruit is called dehiscence. So some fruits can have this feature, some fruits cannot have this feature. So the fruits that have this feature are called dehiscent fruits. Yeah, I'll of course come to the details later on, but these are the three main botanical features of a plant that we're going to look at right now. Coming to things that our science textbook very proudly and very repetitively told us, but never really demonstrated anything, is two types of flowering plants, which is dicotyledonous plants or dicots and monocotyledonous plants or monocots. So di is two, mono is one. Cot or cotyledon is the part of a seed. So if a seed naturally splits into two parts, now I know you're thinking of some seeds that do split naturally into two parts. Yeah. So seeds that do naturally split into two parts come under this group of plants called dicots. And monocots have a single seed that does not split. And if the seed is broken, then it's dead. It's undivided, it cannot be divided naturally. So such seeds are called, or such type of plants that yield such seeds are called monocot. And even without looking at the seed or waiting for the plant to yield a seed, we can still tell the differences or identify whether a plant is a monocot or a dicot. I unfortunately forgot to bring some plant specimens that demonstrate this, but I implore you to look into your kitchen, your food plates, and all the sorts of plants and seeds that you looked at so far. So let's look at dicots first. Like I said, the seed divides, and when it germinates, when we put a seed into soil, and when the new leaves, the first leaf come out, there are two leaves. Yeah. And there's a taproot system. Somebody mentioned that they like roots, right? So there's a taproot, which means it's a tapering root, and then there are branches to that root. The web of veins. So, leaf, there's a single mid vein, and there are multiple veins like that. It's a web of veins. Yeah. And these dicots, they have a feature, a special tissue that allows the stems to grow thick and wide. So they have woody stems. So because there's this feature of growing thick and wide, might as well branch a lot. So dicots are often branched, or they're always branched. They have the capability to branch. And the sepals or the green parts under the flower are different colored and different shaped than the petals, which are the aromatic, beautiful, colorful parts of the plant, the flower. And the petals and sepals both can be 4 or 5 and multiples of these. And it's a very big group of plants with more than 2 lakh species all over the world. Coming to monocots, like we mentioned, it's an undivided seed. So I'm talking about rice, maize, all the grass, all the seeds that come from grasses. Yeah. Sugarcane, wheat, all of our millets, etc. And when this seed is sown and one leaf, it germinates, then only one tiny leaf blade comes out. So it's one seed leaf. And the root system, instead of being tapering and branching, it branches right from the bottom of the stem, which is a fibrous, very bunch of roots and not a single root and branches, not divided specifically like that. And now I want you to think about the leaf of a maize or a grass for that matter. And I'm sure you can visualize that there's a leaf blade, which is usually straight and narrows to the tip. And all the veins are like somebody took a scale and drew lines on it. So they're all parallel to each other. They don't touch each other. So parallel venation is a sign of a monocotyledonous plant. These are non-woody. So anything that comes in this category but has a stem or a big tree, they're faking it. They're not really a true wood. And I'm talking about palms. So palms do tend to, show this strong, big woody stem, but it's not. It's actually false wood. And they don't have the tissue to make true wood like how other dicots make. These trees are unbranched. Sepals and petals often look similar to each other, and they're in multiples of 3 or 3. It's a smaller group, but it's more advanced. So all the features, the way it utilizes its energy, its distribution, its ability to survive and grow in surroundings or localities where nothing else can grow, for example, grasses, is spectacular. So this is a more advanced group of plants, and there are 60,000 species of monocots in this world. So this is a very quick overview of dicots and monocots. I'm sorry I missed including diagrams or having specimens with me, but if you have any questions, you can address them just after our break. Then we have parts of a plant. Again, something that we've seen in a science textbook that we're going to revise today. There's a root. We don't need to worry about these acronyms right now. There's a root, there's a stem. This is the cotyledonary leaf or the first leaf that a plant, a seed grows out before the actual leaves come out. This is the stem. This is a node or the point of growth or point of development, point of magic, where everything grows out of a plant. Yeah. And there are multiple such nodes out of which leaves, stems, flowers, and then fruits, they come out. So everything that's dynamic and growing in the tree happens at these nodes. The space between the nodes is called internode. And there's, of course, leaf and the shoot apex or the tip of the shoot, which is very important because that's where the growth will happen. If that is gone, then the branches or the nodes under, just below the shoot, start growing. And that's why if you've seen gardeners have the habit of plucking these bushy plants, they keep plucking the tips. That is to make them bushier and bushier because they branch more. But if the shoot remains, then it has the tendency to grow longer and taller and, reach farther. Now, there's this very important feature of a plant, which is called axillary bud. So axil is the pocket between the main trunk, main stem, and a branch or a leaf. And this pocket, the armpit of a tree, is called axil. And in that axil, there are often buds that can grow into new leaf, they can grow into new branches, they can grow into a flower branch. And it's very, very important because that indicates that the leaf begins here, yeah, on a tree. I'll come to why I'm mentioning this so ominously, but this is the general structure of plant, and I hope we can remember the axillary bud bit at least. Now coming to leaf, just because this is the whole leaf. This is where the leaf is attached to the tree. The tree is here, and sometimes this is the bud that we were talking about, the axillary bud. This is what will grow into new leaves or flower branch or a leafy branch. And sometimes to protect these buds, to protect this leaf when it was a bud, there are these leaf-like structures which can be various shapes and sizes and colors. And that structure is called a stipule, another feature for us to remember. Petiole is basically leaf stalk. This is the base of the leaf, this is the tip of the leaf, this is the margin of the leaf. These are the veins, this is the midrib or the mid vein or the main vein, and this is the leaf blade. Okay, so again, highlighting buds and stipule, because again, this is how we are going to identify the leaf type. Now, these are the various forms that stipules can take. They can be very simple, spiny-like, but not really pokey. They can be nice, wing-like or fan-shaped. They can be modified to protect the tree, like it happens in acacias and babul and relatives of babul. So this thorn is actually a modified stipule. So there used to be this very gentle stipule, and the plant and its evolution instructed it to do something to protect the leaves, to not let herbivores come and eat those leaves. So these stipules then eventually turned rigid and pokey and like armor for the tree, right? So they can be modified into other organs also. They can be of various shapes, like this in rose. They can have colors, like in this breadfruit tree or fig tree or jackfruit or peepal. You might often see this pink colored petal-like things falling under a peepal tree in this season when the peepal is sprouting new leaves. This is the stipule. Those pink things are stipules of the peepal tree. And they can also be almost leaf-like, because if they're there, might as well do some job and get their own food, make their own food and help the tree. So sometimes it can be leafy. And there are many, many forms, of course, but the key is to try and explore and observe and then conclude what it can be and what is it modified or used for, how is it helping the tree. Now, like I mentioned, that we need to remember the axillary bud or the bud and stipule. Yes, this is the reason. Now we're going to look at leaf types, and they're going to be leaf types like compound leaves, which when we want to identify compound leaves, it's very, very essential to understand where the leaf is beginning. Yeah, so we have to find the stipule. We have to find where the new leaves and new branches are coming out, which is from this axillary bud or a bud, and where the flowers are coming from. Or sometimes, or most of the time, especially when the leaf is a compound leaf, the base of the leaf stalk can be swollen. Can you see this? There's a bulb at the base of the leaf, right? So that swollen leaf base also indicates that this is where the leaf is beginning. This is very, very essential, and we want to make use of this all of our life if you want to identify plants. So please take a moment to look at this slide for a minute till I go through the chat box, and then we'll move on. Parul, could you specify what your question is about? Does this fit on both dicot and monocot? And all the other comments about mango being a dicot and coconut being a monocot and banana being a monocot, I'm guessing, and millets and all cereals and millets being monocots, these are absolutely correct. Yes, Parira, I hope I said your name right. The stipules protect new growth, that's right. So they can be around new leaves, new branches, flowers also. So it depends on what the tree has instructed the stipules to do for it. So stipules are not present in monocots, or I can't think of any monocot that has stipules. I think they don't have stipules. And leaf types, only plants with odd or only monocots with these funky leaf types are palms and some, yeah, mostly palms. So they have a different type of leaf. So not all of what we're looking at applies to monocots. But it applies mostly to dicots. But thank you for that question. That helps me clarify some things. Monocots come later, as in evolutionary. Yes, they do come later. Nishant, I love your enthusiasm for the types of compound leaves, and we'll get into that. And I hope it doesn't become too overwhelming for us. But we'll look at the leaf types very soon. Okay, has everyone memorized this thing on the board right now? Please give me a thumbs up and we can move ahead. Thank you, Gangotri. I see your thumb, and Padmajas, and Shilpa, and Harsha. I see some people like Dhananjay was my Messi batchmate, and Pratiksha, I know Pratiksha very well. Great, so good to see all of you. Okay, I am guessing that everybody has not fallen asleep, and let's move ahead. Thank you for the thumbs up in the chat box. Now we come to the most fascinating and most elaborate and trickiest also part of identifying plants, which is the leaf type. Now, first foremost, we need to look at these stipules and then figure out where the leaf is beginning. And then we look at how the leaves are arranged on the branch. So for example, this is a branch, yeah, and these are all my leaves. So I'm going to look at how they're arranged. If now wherever the leaf is attached is a node, because all the growth happens only at nodes, there is nothing happening at the internodes. Yeah, so the rule is wherever there is growth, there's a node. Now, if two leaves are present or two or more leaves are present at a single node, this is a node, this is a node, this is a node, and I see two leaves coming out from this node, two from this node, two from this node. So if there are multiple leaves, two or more leaves from the same node, then the leaf arrangement can be called opposite. Okay, and so this tree, this plant has opposite leaves. Yeah, as opposed to this, if there is only a single leaf coming from one node, and is unaffected by heat and dehydration, like all of us. But if you can see this properly, this is a node, and this is a node, and this is a node, and this is a node. And we see that only a single leaf has come out from one node. Yeah? When that happens, then the leaf type is, or leaf arrangement is alternate. Okay? So this is opposite. 1, 2, 3, 4 is alternate. That is the first major feature of leaves that we need to look at. Nishant, you're right. The first individual that I showed is opposite. Perfect. So you're getting it already. Fantastic. Now we look at leaf form. Now this is where things get really interesting. Okay. Now when plants developed from these organisms that came from water to land, then they had this single leaf like structure, a flat thallus, a surface that just made food. Yeah. But then they started diversifying and they started expressing themselves in different ways, and different types of plants formed. Now, in this course of formation of different types of leaves or different plants, what happened is, suppose this is a leaf. I mean, it does look like a leaf, but I would like you to use your imagination. And there was this simple leaf, and it was performing its function and everything. But there was a mutation once in a while, and that led to a cut from the cut in the leaf. Okay. And that cut went from maybe just a little nick, just a little nick or gap in the leaf blade, to straight up dividing the whole leaf blade till the midrib. Okay. And it was more efficient to maintain the leaf. For example, if there was there's an animal who ate the leaf and he ate this much, but this still remained on the tree. And this trait, this mutation got passed on, and there were more mutation and so on. And that gave rise to something called compound leaf. So this simple undivided leaf got turned into something that got divided more and more, quite systematically, all along the margin to the midrib. Yeah. So this is the If a leaf has such divisions, then we can say it's the compound leaf. If there are no division, if it's just a simple leaf or undivided leaf, then it's called a simple leaf. Okay. Now these divisions can be of multiple levels or multiple kinds also. Like you saw that when I gave the cuts, they were all along the midrib. One cut here, one cut here, one cut here, one cut here. And the points where this cut reached the main vein were all different. Yeah. So that is when the leaf is called pinnately compound, or all the sections that happen because of these cuts, they're all pairs. You know, there's this pair, this pair, this pair, this pair, this and this. But sometimes what will happen is, instead of getting divided like this, I'm going to improvise because I forgot to cut another leaf shape. Okay, so this is a smaller leaf. And instead of cutting all across or all along the main vein, the cuts happened at the same point on the leaf. Suppose in the somewhere near the base of the leaf is where the point is. Okay. Now the cuts are happening like all converging, all cuts converging to this point. Did you see how the cuts happened? They went not along the main vein, which was this, but they went to this one point on the main vein, and all of the cuts happened there. So there's one leaflet here, or one section here, one section here, one section here. And that sort of gives the leaf an appearance like this. Yeah, so this would have been my one whole leaf, but it got cut like this, this, to this one point. And it has an appearance like a hand or like a palm. Yeah, more fingers than mine, but a palm nonetheless. Correct? So this type of leaf division or type of leaf or form is called palmately compound or palm-like. Okay. Now, palmately compound is fairly simple, and it's called a compound leaf only when the divisions are till the base. Okay. If there's a leaf like say papayas, where there's only sections and they're not fully cut till the main vein, till the tip, till the main stalk of the leaf, then it's called a lobed leaf and not a compound leaf. Okay, I again forgot to bring, it was too big to cut anyway without anybody noticing. Now, palmately compound is fairly simple, but pinnately compound can have multiple types. There are two ways to describe. One is even leaflets. So if we count all the number of leaflets along the leaf, if it comes to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 even numbers, then it's called it's called even leaflet compound leaf. Okay. If there is, the leaf number is 3, 5, 7, 9, like that, odd numbers, then they are odd leaflets. And why does the oddness happen is because there's one leaf at the tip. Instead of branching, there's just one leaf that remains, leaflet that remains at the tip of the whole structure. And that's why there are odd number of leaflets in that leaf. Okay. So there can be even number leaflets, odd number leaflets. And that's one way or one sectioning or one feature of leaf to notice. But the main important or fascinating feature of leaf is how many times the leaf is divided. Yeah. Now we saw that I gave a single cut and then this leaf was formed, this compound leaf was formed. Yeah. And that can be seen in something like this. Okay. So I know that the leaf begins here because I see a swollen leaf base here. It's very tiny for you to notice, I'm sorry. But this is, of course, like an exercise for you when you go, on a walk to just look at leaves and trying to understand where the leaf begins. So I first figured out where my leaf is beginning, and then I'm analyzing the structure that I see after that point. Yeah. So there are some very tiny buds here in this axil, in this armpit of the leaf or the plant. And then I see that this is where my leaf is beginning, and this is my one leaf. This also. Okay, now this is my one leaf. Now, my point is, or what I want to do is I want to find out how the smallest leaflet, smallest structure in that whole organ is formed. How many cuts does it take to reach that small leaflet? Okay, so I imagine this one thing to be my entire leaf, and then I give one cut and I reach this leaflet. So if a leaf is formed by just one cut from the margin to the midrib, one cut, then it's once divided. And an example is neem or curry leaf. Yeah. Now, to add more fun and more security to the structure, even this small segment can get cuts, and because of this mutation in the evolution, the course of evolution, of course. And then that second cut leads to a structure like this, a feathery leaf. Yeah. Now, this is the smallest unit that I see, and I want to reach here. So I want to see how many cuts do I need to reach that structure. Now, we again see that there is a fat leaf base, a swollen leaf base. So I know this is where the leaf begins, which means this whole thing is a single leaf. Yeah, this whole thing is a single leaf, and the structure is formed by dividing that leaf. Now I give one cut and I reach this section, but I've not reached the smallest part yet. So I give one more cut, and then I see that I've reached the smallest unit of this whole structure. And how many cuts did I give? Two. One and two. So if a leaf is formed by two divisions, two cuts, then it's called twice divided leaf. Okay. Now, sometimes because of some beautiful mutations, which has now become a feature, that small unit which we found here is also divided further with one more cut. Okay, and this is a leaf that I have, which has such a feature. I'm sorry, it's very difficult to see anything in this, but humor me. Again, we have a fat leaf base. So we know the leaf begins here, which means this whole structure is one leaf, which doesn't even fit into the screen at this point. What a gorgeous creation. Okay. Now this is the smallest unit in this leaf. Okay. And I want to reach here. So I have to give one cut and I reach here. I have to give a second cut and I reach here. And there's one more division in this structure. So third cut. So if a leaf is formed by three cuts, then it's thrice divided. Now I want you to look at the overall shape of these two. This is tripinnately compound leaf and this is bipinnately compound leaf. Yeah, bipinnate has a feathery appearance and it's a rectangular overall shape. Tripinnate, on the opposite hand, or tripinnate's feature is that it's a triangular leaf. Yeah, the base is broader and then it narrows down because not every single leaflet or section of that leaf is divided thrice. The three divisions are usually found only on the lower portions of the leaf. It's not an entirely tripinnate or thrice divided. It's a mix of uni and bi and tripinnate. Like here there are three divisions. Here there are only two divisions. Here there's only one division. Yeah, so it's a mix of everything, which is what gives it a triangular shape. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at. And we looked at this feature when leaflets are even and odd. You don't need to count the leaflets, of course. We just need to see whether the tip has two things or whether the tip has one leaflet. Yeah, and this tiny section is called a leaflet, not a leaf. Leaf is a whole thing. Leaflet is a section after the leaf is divided. Yeah, so we only look at the tip and see whether there's just one leaflet or there are two leaflets, and we can divide these two. And this paired and unpaired leaflet can be a feature of uni also, bi also, tri also. So they can be twice divided leaves which have odd leaflet at the tip. There can be thrice divided leaves which can have an odd leaflet at the tip. There can be once divided leaves which can have an odd leaflet at the tip. Now, neem, does anyone remember if neem has one leaflet at the tip or two leaflets at the tip? Would anyone be able to? One. Yes. Those who are saying one are correct. Now, sometimes there can be, the leaf has broken off, the tip has broken off, and you see something under that. And so you need to look at multiple leaves to figure out what's the norm. But one is the correct answer. Thank you very much, everyone who answered. And can you think, if you've noticed Indian laburnum, Bahawa or Amaltash, can you think how many leaflets does the tip of that leaf have? It's a compound leaf, we know that now. But how many leaflets are there? Two. Jaya, you've really got it. Yes. So you see, even though both neem and Indian laburnum are once divided, one has a single leaflet at the tip and another has two leaflets at the tip. Yeah. So there can be that difference. Does this make sense? Is everything on this slide clear? Cassias have two leaflets at the tip. Yes, Indian laburnum is Cassia fistula, so you're very right. And later we'll look at families and we'll realize that it's a feature of the whole family that Cassia belongs to. So it makes things very easy. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
I have one request to make. When we see the presentation, we can't see you.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think that's because my video is pinned.
it is not pinned.
It is pinned and
I don't know why I can't see both together.
You could change your view.
I can see you very well.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
You're all able
So
to
you
see.
have to check your own stuff. I think she's going
okay,
fine.
okay. Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. I hope you have it figured out soon. Okay, we'll look at more examples of each of these types when we look at families, because we're going to look at a lot of leaf types also and species also. So I hope it helps. Okay, so I'm assuming that we have understood all of this and we move on to the flower arrangement. Now flowers can be single flower on tree or they can be in bunches. Bunches have the advantage that all of them, bloom one after the other, or they are more attractive compared to just one single flower. So some trees use that strategy to attract the pollinators, to sort of beacon and tell, hello, the flowers are here. And uh, everything that the plants do, that every living organism does for that matter, it requires energy. And as organisms, as individuals, we have to understand, or we have to manage our energies and decide how to make the maximum, most efficient use of our energies. So plants have two mechanisms in which the flowers bloom, or in which the flowers are organized or arranged on their branches. And these two major big types are, one is solitary, of course, which means there's just one flower and one branch tip is one flower, that's it. But there are bunches of flowers and they can be two broad categories, which is racemose and cymose. I don't know any simpler names for these, but racemes are when it's a tapering bunch like this, and older flowers which bloom first are at the base, and the tip has buds and it can grow on and on, and it can keep growing and extending indefinitely, ideally. And the young ones, so buds, are at the tip. So again, coming to Bahawa, Amaltash, you see that there are buds. It's an upside down hanging flower, and the flowers that are closer to the tree, towards the sky, they bloom first, and the ones that are closer to us are buds, and they bloom last. Yeah. And the opposite is cymose, where the oldest flower is on the tip and the buds are protected and kept secret at the lower part of the whole inflorescence or the bunch. Yeah. So the bouquet of flowers is called inflorescence. Of course, we don't need to remember that name, but I might just use it and I'm explaining it for reference. So these bunches, based on where the bud is, at the tip or at the base, there are two categories. And if you at all come across a tree that is flowering, then it helps to remember or try to identify what type of flower bunches they have. Okay. But this is not extremely important. Our focus today is going to be to look at leaves to identify plants, but I might as well just cover these basics since we're talking about botany. That's why I mentioned this. Now, one of our most favorite features of plants are, of course, flowers. Like, other organisms are so extremely attracted to the flowers and we want to do various things with them, which is to beautify and to use and to drink and smell and all sorts of things. So flower is actually the reproductive part of the plant, and they are the most attractive feature because they have to get a lot of attention of the pollinators. And they have these various parts that make it possible for the flower to turn into a fruit which has a seed inside. Yeah, so these are the general parts of the flower. Sepal is the green part that we often see when the flower is a bud, which is protecting and enclosing the delicate, beautiful, aromatic, and attractive parts of the flower because the flower is not ready yet to be exposed to the world. So these sepals are protective, the green, the sturdy. They sometimes remain on the flower, on the leaves, on the flower stalk, and around the fruit also, like in brinjal and tomato. We see that twig with a bunch of green leafy things. Those are the sepals of the flower that the brinjal and tomatoes once were. Petals are the attractive, colorful, aromatic, fragrant part of the flower, which do the beckoning and attracting. Then there are male and female parts in the flower. Typically, both are in the same flower, but they can also be in separate flowers. So there's a male flower and there's a female flower, but here we're going to look at a flower which has both male and female together. So ideally again, there's only one ovary or one female part and multiple male parts which ensure that the fruit is formed. The pollen is transferred from these male parts to the female parts, and the fruit formation happens. And plants realize that this is a very fairly efficient strategy, and we did not put a lot of energy into putting a lot of ovaries into one flower. So this is what they settled for. So there's one female part. So this one in the center is the female part, and these 5 of them are male parts. So this tip are these pockets which contain the pollen, the powdery stuff that is the male gamete or human equivalent, that is sperm. And this is this filament is just to hoist it so that when the insects come, the pollen can be dusted, or the birds come, the pollen can be dusted on them. And then that pollen is transferred to the stigma, the sticky receptacle stage of the female part, which then passes through this sometimes long, sometimes short, depending on the species, filament or the tube. And then it reaches this part. That filament tube is called style. I don't know why, but I love the name. Actually, stylus means a rod or a hair. So that's why it's named style. And this is the ovary where all the magic happens. So the pollen and the male gamete, the cells, they reach this ovary and they go into these ovules, which are the eggs of the tree. And once that happens, then the fruit formation occurs. But of course, before fruit, we are looking at the flower types, and there can be 2 types of flowers. Ones with the petals that are free, which means if I have a flower and if I pluck a petal, then the whole flower doesn't come undone. Or I don't have to tear it from the flower, from other petals of the flower. So when that is the case, then my petals are free. I mean, the flower's petals are free. But when I have to tear the petal from other petals to remove one petal, then they're fused. So an example of free petal is Gulmohar. Example of fused petal is oleander or kanhir or tabubia or what else? Jacaranda, African tulip. पिवळी कण्हेर, bittiचं झाड, that yellow cup-shaped flower. So most cup-shaped flowers obviously have fused petals. So that's one way of distinguishing or describing a flower. Second is symmetry. Flowers are highly beautiful. They obviously follow a lot of mathematical rules, as trees often are fond of doing. And if a flower can be divided from in multiple planes and all of the sections are similar to each other, then it's called a radial symmetry. Yeah, so the flower is like circular, it's perfect, And if the flower can be divided in only one part in one plane and only two equal same looking parts can be found, then the symmetry is bilateral. Now, example of radial symmetry is Tabubia, where all the petals are similar shaped and size and color. And if we think of blue pea is Gokarnam, then we see that we can only divide the flower in two parts. And, if we divide it like this or like this, the parts are not equal. So two ways to describe a flower, whether male and female are together, that is one. Second is whether the petals are free or they're fused. And third is whether the flower is radial, can be divided in multiple planes, or bilateral, in only one plane and two equal parts can be found. Does this make sense to everyone? Can I see thumbs also? Okay. I'm also looking at, okay, I see them. Fantastic. Good, smart people. Now coming to the last part of basics of botany, which is fruit. Now, this is something that I also very recently learned, during my graduation. And it was not very clear to me at that time. But the more we talk about it, the more we get confused and then read up again to remove that confusion, the more we tend to remember these things. So it's okay if you don't remember everything or understand everything in this workshop. But we'll keep having these conversations, we'll keep going on tree walks, and we'll keep looking at trees and practicing with this information. And then we'll reach, to reach the level of remembering these features. Now, fruits can be of three kinds. Simple fruit, where one flower turns into one fruit. An aggregate fruit is this old idea of a flower, an old idea of fruit, where the plants were unsure, will my flower bear a baby, will my flower successfully turn into a fruit and have seeds which will then turn into more plants. I'm very nervous, let me just put a lot of energy into this and let me just go all out. So each flower had multiple ovaries, and all of those ovaries formed fruits, and all of those fruits had seeds. But instead of separate fruits, they all came together to form a bunch, like sitafal, and that is called an aggregate fruit. So one flower, many ovaries, it got cut here, I'm sorry. One flower with many ovaries and one fruit of all of them is called aggregate fruit. Now we looked at inflorescence or bunch of flowers, yeah? So when all of these bunch of flowers, when they decide to fuse their fruits together to save energy, that's when a composite fruit is formed. So something like a fig or jackfruit or pineapple, when they are formed, there are multiple, many flowers that bunch together to form a fruit. And that's how a composite fruit is formed. There are not many examples, it's not very widespread and it's difficult to identify. It's not like that. But I thought I'll mention these because we're going to talk about one family which has this type of fruiting, and we might as well know this feature of that family. Yeah. Now, I talked about dehiscence of fruits, right? How does that come into being? So simple fruit can be fleshy, which means it has pulp, or it can be dry, which means there is no pulp. And these dry fruits, they can be dehiscent, which means they dry on their own and they have a nice suture or a slit that makes it easy for the fruit to split open. Yeah, so that is called a dry dehiscent fruit. It can be indehiscent, which means there is no feature for this fruit to open. But this cashew is a smart one and it has put a seed outside. So there is no question of dehiscing. There's only Yeah, the seed just gets dispersed without the fruit having to do anything about it. And there's this special category called schizocarpic. Now, again, we don't really need to learn it at this point, but it's fascinating. And our very beloved seeds or fruits, actually, like body soap, saunf, and coriander seeds, they belong to this category. So, you know that when we sow saunf or jeera also, or coriander seeds also, we crush them. And when we crush, then some skin is removed and two things come out. So that is schizocarpic. Schizo is dry and carpus is fruit, I think. No. Yeah. And this is a fruit which has no pulp, and the fruit coat and the seed are so close together that it appears like the whole thing is a seed, but it's actually a fruit. So that is schizocarpic. Again, a very small group of plants have this feature, but because I am very fascinated by them, and because I want to also talk about why we have to crush these seeds before sowing them, I like to mention this type. But we're going to look mostly at composite fruit and simple dry dehiscent fruit type in this workshop. Okay. Another feature that we often
Sayee, could you explain the difference between aggregate fruit and composite fruit once again, please?
Yeah, I sure can.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Now, have you seen a son safa or a golden champa or champa? Has anyone seen the flower?
Yes, champa, white flower, one of my
Yeah.
favorite. Yes.
Have you ever done the monstrous thing of peeling its petals and looking at the center?
No, I'll try that now.
Okay, please do that if you want to understand what's happening. So I'm mentioning champa, or have you looked at flowers of sitafal for that matter, custard apple?
No.
Okay, so we'll stick with champa. Now, both of these are primitive plants, and they're like very in the beginning of evolution of plants. And these were the nervous species that we're not sure if one ovary will do the job. So these flowers, instead of our structure of flower, where we have a single ovary, they have a bunch of multiple ovaries in the center. So there is a dome like this here in champa and in sitafal flowers, custard apple flowers, where there are small pockets which are actually ovaries. Now there's one flower, but many ovaries. Yeah. And when pollination happens, then each of this ovary, actually, let me see if I can Google the photos, or you could do it too, really.
Search for champa flower.
Michaelia Champaka flower diagram, look for that. Okay. Can you see this window?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the section, this is the structure that I was talking about. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
The D diagram.
Yes.
So all of these small petal-like things are actually ovaries. And this is what the flower center looks like. These are all the petals. And these are all the male parts at the base. And this dome in the center are all the ovaries. So when the pollination happens, which happens by beetles, by the way, because this plant doesn't know how to attract bees. They don't have the feature because bees evolved after Champa did. Yeah, so they're pollinated by beetles, non-flying insects, or rather insects which are bigger and not as social as bees. Okay, so when pollination happens through beetles, then each of this ovary develops into a fruit like this.
Wow.
Have you seen this structure in a champa tree? Has anyone noticed this? So this is an aggregate fruit, It's not as fused as they are in custard apple, but they're still, grown together.
Hmm.
And all of this thing develops from one single flower. So one flower, many fruits bunched together, that's aggregate fruit.
One flower, many fruits bunched together is aggregate fruit.
Yes. Does this make sense?
So that means in one tree, there can be several flowers. The
Hmm.
several flowers each will have, since there are many ovaries, they'll have many fruits and it'll become one aggregate fruit, but there'll be several of those aggregate fruits.
Yeah. So each flower, like whole tree. Now is a good time. So go for a walk today itself and
Okay.
find a champa tree and
Hmm.
look if it's fruiting. So you'll see
Hmm.
these grape-like structures all over the tree.
Hmm.
And they have developed from one flower which was in the place of that one bunch.
Got it.
Yeah. So that is aggregate fruit.
Thank you.
Okay. And composite I'll come to when we talk about the fig family.
Okay.
And then we'll discuss how that happens.
Thank you.
Okay.
Else's question that I have is pomegranate an aggregate fruit, or is that simple?
It's a simple fruit. So sometimes the ovary of a flower has many sections and many ovules, and all of them then turn into seeds with their own coat. So pomegranate has that type of a fruit. It's a simple fruit. It's fleshy, and each seed has its own fleshy, yummy covering. But it's all formed from one flower, one ovary.
Say
Thank
we
you.
have we have many questions in the chat box. So can
Yes.
we quickly go through it and then continue the.
Is Gokarna pod dehiscent? Yes, it is. So if we let the pod stay on the tree, on the climber, then we see it has opened, split open, and the seeds have fallen down. So if that happens, the splitting of the pod is dehiscent. So Gokarna is dehiscent. Cucumber has multiple seeds, wise it's simple and not aggregate. So seeds can be multiple in all these types. And seed is formed from ovules. So if one ovary has many ovules, then multiple seeds are formed. How do I explain this? Does it make sense, Ishita?
Yes, sir, it makes sense now. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Are grapes aggregate fruits? I don't know actually. That's a good question. So grape have an inflorescence and each flower turns into one fruit. And they all have the same stalk and everything, but I don't know if they formally come under this. So they won't be aggregate fruits. They can be composite fruits at max, not aggregate. That's the short answer. But I don't know if they can be categorized as composite fruits either, Padmaja. I hope this helps. Brief about unisexual flowers. We'll look at unisexual flowers when we look at one of the families today. And I hope that answers it. Ghost tree, the pods are red color ones and small tiny branch out near these pods. I'll have to look at a photo to sort of understand. But in ghost tree, there are many flowers that are born in a bunch. And each flower then forms this one, that one red structure. So I think they're just simple fruits, simple dry dehiscent fruits in ghost tree. One ovary, one fruit having many seeds is simple. Many ovary, one fruit having so many is aggregate. You're right, Parul. You got it. Perfect. Okay, let me also look at more questions. So ovules make seeds and ovary make fruit. Fantastic. Yes, Ishita. I missed mentioning this directly, but that's the whole idea. Very nice. Pomegranate is simple. Again, I think I addressed that. Is flower either male or female? Can the whole tree contain both, or whole trees either male or female? There are all of these types. So each flower can have both male and female. One tree can have flowers with only males and only female, but both flowers in the same tree. There can be trees with only male flowers and another tree with only female flowers. So there's all of this possible. And one example of bisexual is very, very common. So all these, mango, actually, no, sorry, mango is not bisexual. So Sitafal, for example, is a bisexual flower. Papaya has a male tree and a female tree. So there's a tree that grows only male flowers and a whole tree that grows only female flowers. And then there's Singapore cherry, actually, which has on the same tree male flowers also and female flowers also on the same branch. But there are flowers that have only male parts and flowers that have only female parts. And of course, in these cases, only the branches or the places or the trees with female flowers will bear fruits. I hope this helps. I will show examples of trees with flowers having different reproductive organs. I'll do that. Okay, I think I've covered the questions. Priyal, I think I answered your question with about papaya. Okay, I think I've covered. Grapes are simple fruits. Thank you, Farida. Thank you for confirming that. Cool. All right, I will move on to this one small topic on how to differentiate between buds and fruits or young fruits more precisely. So it's the or sepals. So in buds, the sepals will be closed and you won't see any structures below. But if it's a fruit, then you'll see structure like this plate. That you can see this presentation, right? This plate, which are actually the sepals that have opened up and there was a flower and the flower has fallen off, only sepal remains. So you see sepals in fruits, but you don't see sepals in flower buds. And orientation of flowers are different. So here, this is a Singapore cherry. And you see that there are these male parts, the yellow ones, and a female part is in the center. So there are bisexual flowers and male flowers in Singapore cherry. So there's some flowers which don't have this central green bottle. But there are these which have both male and female parts. So this is a bisexual flower in Singapore cherry. Yeah. So flowers, because they have to attract pollinators which come flying from usually above, they are facing up and the fruits are usually facing downwards. Yeah, so that's a difference or a way of differentiating between buds and fruits, because you're going to look at phenology later. This would come handy, I thought. Okay. Now we're going to look at some plant families and how we're going to go about it. Are you all ready to go into the families? Can I see thumbs up again, please? Thank you, Tanmay. Good to see you in the workshop. Okay. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. We go into the families, and how we're going to do that is we are going to look at a tree that's familiar to at least most of us. Even if it's not, I have some photos on the slides, and we can later do our homework and go look at these trees and verify these features for ourselves in person. We are going to observe in detail each and every part of this tree that we've chosen. So we're going to look at the leaves, we're going to observe the flowers, we're going to look at the fruits. We're going to remember looking at these features before in our lives, before this workshop, and try to correlate what we're looking at and what we're thinking about it. Yeah. And then we're going to describe what we see through a set of questions. And the answers would be all of the things that we've looked at so far. Like what is the leaf type, what is the flower type, what is the fruit type, etc. And then we're going to try and remember these family characters. Of course, not immediately. You can take screenshots, you can take photos. We're going to share this presentation also with you later for reference. We also have this recorded and you can look at this presentation later. And then once we have these family characters somewhere, we're comfortable with these characters, then we can try and apply it to the new plant that we may come across around us. Yeah, so this is how we're going to learn families and how we're going to come to identifying or learning about these families. Okay, now we will take a small break of 10 minutes because I want to stop talking and I'm sure you want to stop listening to me for a bit. And please don't leave the meeting. We know that we only 100 people, and if you quit, you'll have to move to the YouTube if you don't get to come back. It's just 10 minutes. We'll step away from our screens, get something refreshing and hydrating and relaxing. and we'll start again at 3:40. And I hope to continue this workshop with you in 10 minutes.
You can also ask some questions if you have and put it in the chat box.
Yeah.
Later on, we can start with the questions itself.
Yes, yes, thank you, Aniket. We're going to start with questions once we come back from the break. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. We can also come back in 10 minutes and have an open session for questions for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll move on. Thank you, Priyal, for your excitement. It really keeps me going. Okay, I'm also going to move away from my screen for a bit, and I'll see you very quickly. Hi, everyone. I'm back from my break. Floral formula. Yeah, thankfully, I don't have to deal with it ever in life again, actually, just to pass the exams, I think. And I think I like floral formulae because they're cryptic, no? They have these symbols that tell you what, the symmetry, if it's radial or if it's bilateral. And I really like those symbols. And systematics in general is like this very excluding sort of feel where you really have to remember, like learn a very completely different language to get a hang of it. So my voice isn't second. Is this better? Chaitanya, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, your voice is better. I mean, good.
Okay, all right. Chaitanya, might be an error, something with your system then perhaps, if others can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you, Surabhi. Yes, it is the right time to ask about fake or false Ashok and true Ashok. We are respectable towards tree, respecting. So true Ashok belongs to a completely different family. It's a rarer tree. It has very gorgeous red orange flowers. And the false Ashok is actually is not from geographical India, but from Southeast Asia, I think. And it was brought for ornamental purposes and timber purposes, and making them into our guards of our society and gates, basically. And it has a very different kind of leaves. This leaf I showed was false Ashok, and sort of looks like mango. They're simple leaves, whereas leaves of true Ashoka are once divided kind of leaves. It belongs to the same family as Indian laburnum, so many of its features are similar to that. And like traditionally, mythologically, historically, true Ashok is called Ashok, or which is the remover of sorrow, which gives no sorrow because of its soothing properties. And it's a beautiful, huge tree that just is good to look at. So looking at it, makes you forget all your pain. And it's also a source of estrogen hormone, a plant source of estrogen hormone, which is very, very useful into medication to regulate female reproductive system in humans or mammals, I think. So that's why it was named Ashok. And I don't know why false Ashok is named Ashok. I've heard a few stories. One of which was Emperor Ashok planted these trees and propagated them across India. I don't know how true that is though, but that's one reason why it got the name Ashok. So I hope that summarizes a difference between false Ashok and true Ashok. Empress Garden in Pune. Where are you based, Arif? Bangalore. Oh, Lalbagh. Lalbagh has a lot of Lalbagh Botanical Garden has a lot of
Sita.
Sita Ashok or True Ashok, and now is a good time to go look at them because they would be flowering.
Got
There are
it.
several flowering trees.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really helpful.
Thank you. Zeal, books, articles to understand plant evolution and biogeography. Oh wow. I'll have to think a bit, but many books that talk about plants in general do mention their biogeography. Evolution maybe not so much, and you would have to look at individual papers to look at plant evolution really, or books that are specifically about evolution, which I don't have a list ready with me, but I'll be happy to look up and share some references. There are some questions in the YouTube portal that I'm going to look at right now. Adnan, I hope you're still on this call on YouTube at least. You wanted to ask why flowers have both stamens and ovaries, since that leads to self-pollination. for genetic diversity, would it not be better to cross-pollinate? That's a great question. And plants have already figured that out. So many plants have chemical hindrance that avoids self-pollination. So even if a pollen from the same flower falls on the stigma of the same flower, the chemicals on the stigma don't allow that pollen to germinate. And it only germinates when there's a good compatibility between the pollen and the stigma. So that prevents self-pollination, and that's like the last resort. And even if in some kinds of flowers, even if male and female are in the same flower, they sometimes mature at different times. So a flower can be male for some initial part, and then the stamen sort of droop down, and the flower acts like female. Only the stigmas are active. So that means once they've drooped down, only the insects can bring pollen from other flowers, and that enables cross pollination. So yeah, I mean, that's one way of making sure that energy is saved by putting both of them in the same flower, but also ensuring that the genes just don't keep recycling into the same organism, but genetic mixing up happens. Nirjesh Saptaparni belongs to a family called Oleander family. And that family by default has no male and female flowers. All of them are bisexual flowers. So all the Saptaparni trees actually have both male and female parts in the same flower. So they've planted whatever Saptaparni is available, this bisexual Saptaparni, everywhere. And it's a bad idea because they do bloom in mass, and it does lead to a lot of pollen load in the air. And that becomes problematic. But it's a bad idea, but they're not just male flowers in Saptaparni is what I wanted to clarify. Have I missed any other questions? Grapes are simple fruits. Yes, I looked that up, Zabeen. Thank you for putting that here. Grapes are actually berries, which are simple fruits, simple fleshy fruits. And they're one flower forms one fruit. They just clump together because of the way the flowers are arranged in its inflorescence. And that answers our question. It's a simple fruit. Thank you, Zabeen. Okay, I think we have answered all the questions on YouTube. Zeel, I don't have any books on the top of my head right now, but you've messaged me on WhatsApp, and please message me again and I'll try and find a list for you. Taxonomic books show some things on plant evolution. That's right, Saisha. Yes, they do talk about plant evolution. And there are some books like College Botany by A.C. Datta. And that's like a Bible. That's the book that we referred to for during my second and third year of graduation. So, and it's very easily available in any of the second-hand bookshops and any bookshop for that matter, even on Amazon. So you can look at that book to get, like, most of this presentation was made from that book. So it's like a great book to have handy if you want to, Gujjaran Singh Systematic Book is also a great book. Yes. Thank you, Saisha. I'll actually show you that book. I have it right here. Just a second. This is College Botany by A.C. Datta. Yeah, I have put it in the chat box. I will also tag Snehal Datta. I hope you can see this message. And it's for everyone, of course. Okay, any questions on the content we have looked at so far, or anything else that's on your mind right now? We can take 2 more minutes for questions, and then we'll have to move with our families. Characteristics of cannonball tree. Wow. Cannonball tree, the leaves are simple. They're glossy. They are arranged on branches at the tips of the branches. So they're clustered towards the branch tips. The inflorescences are the most interesting. They, instead of coming in axils of branches like plants typically do, they actually are cauliflorous, which means caulis is stem, flora is flower, which means they grow on the stem directly. So they grow these lanky, unruly branches on which the flowers grow. The flower is the most fascinating. It ideally has radial symmetry in its petals at least, but the center, it has a mass of fertile stamens and a structure called stamen nodes, which look like stamens, but they're sterile. They don't have any pollens in them. And in center, there's one ovary. So you know, there's a hood-like structure and there's a hole in the center here, and that's where the ovary sits. So these are the stamen nodes, I think. I'm forgetting which part is the fertile one, but there's one bunch of pollen that is fertile, one is that is infertile, and it just attracts insects and that action. Actually, maybe these ones are fertile and the ones around them are infertile. So that's the feature of the flower. The fruit is indehiscent, fleshy, and it has to fall down due to gravity and crack open for the seeds to go out. I hope this helps.
Excellent, beautiful. No, there's a tree I came across a cannonball tree that was flowering and fragrant, and the flowers were around. The first time I've seen it, stuck to the trunk.
Yeah.
On the trunk, so it's not leaves or this thing. There, of course, a huge tall tree.
Yeah.
Thing. So it was just gorgeous. I took some. I can't share the pictures here though. But anyway, thank you for sharing that. Got some more details now.
Thank you. And I mean, it's very important to look at whatever you're seeing very carefully before you make conclusions. That's like rule number one in botany. Because when we begin, we do make silly conclusions. Like when I looked at cannonball tree for the first time as a botany student, I thought it's a climber because I only looked at the flower and the branches and I thought, okay, that's it. But then one time I saw this tree stand alone without any other trees, any canopies overshadowing it. And that's when I realized it's a whole huge tree. And Amazon tree actually comes from Amazon tree. A cannonball tree comes from the Amazon forests, actually. It's a native of that region. And that's also like I have this dream of going to that forest and seeing the tree in its habitat. And if it can grow so huge in this temperate tropical India with limited resources, I can't imagine how big it would be in the Amazon forest. Okay, great. Any more questions?
May I ask now?
Yes. Who's this? Sorry, I can't.
Sorry, I'm Gangotri Chanda. So my
Yes.
question is there any scientific method to calculate the age of the trees without harming the trees?
Without harming, no. One is, of course, that we know of, which is when the tree is cut, you count the rings. And another one is there's a device that brings out a small section of the trunk. So you put it till the center and then you pull it out, and the tube has, a section of the wood, and then you can count the rings on it to measure the age. But there is no non-invasive, non-harmful method.
What about
to
carbon dating?
Carbon dating, I think it's more useful for very, very old trees because carbon dating is a slow process. I'm not sure if it can be used to accurately calculate age of living trees. I've not heard of that being used for this purpose. But that's a good way of thinking about it.
Will this course cover how to count the age of trees?
Sorry?
Will this course cover how to count?
No, I don't know how to count, so it won't cover it. Jackfruit tree does not have vertical branches. Not as prominent as or uniform as the Mexican Lyricida does. So it can't be described as a tree with vertical branches. Okay. Is jackfruit cauliflowers? Yes, it is. Very good. Good application of what we're sharing here. Yes, jackfruit is cauliflowers. Even true ashok is cauliflowers. And I would like you to think of some more trees that are cauliflowers. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. and we dive into the families. Please take a moment again to come back to the, can you see the presentation? Where is it?
Yes, yes. I guess it's already shared.
I can't see it. Okay, 1 second.
We can see a slide which says break.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know what's happening. Sorry, give me a minute, please.
Or you can just reshare.
Has the slide changed for you? Okay.
Yes,
Ah.
it's changed.
It's sorted. Thank you. Thank you, Surekha. Got it. So before we broke for break, I told you that we're going to look at the families. We're going to look at the familiar tree that we have everywhere around us in India, mostly, that we may have observed quite closely. We're going to look at the details again, and we're going to describe what we see. And we're going to list the characters of this tree, and then apply it to the whole family, and then remember those set of characters. And then when we look at the new plant, we're going to see if these characters are present in this new tree, and whether that tree can be, or plant can be fit into this family that we know. We're going to look at 5 such families that covers a lot of species, and that should help us reach somewhere close to identifying plants. Yeah. The questions that we're going to ask our leaves today is are there any structures at the leaf base? So first we're going to figure out where the leaf begins. We're going to figure out where the axillary bud is, or the stipule is, or the bulbous leaf base is, swollen leaf base is. And then we're going to see if there's anything more around that. Yeah, like stipules, most importantly, or thorns, or spines, or prickles. And then we're going to see if there's any latex present. We're going to, of course, you can't see it here because I don't have photos of that. But we're going to try and remember if we see any latex in these plants that I'm going to display on the screen for us. Then we're going to try to identify the leaf arrangement, whether it's whether it's alternate, or whether it's opposite. Yeah. So leaf arrangement, opposite or alternate. Then we're going to look at leaf type, whether it's simple or compound, undivided leaf, or the leaf is divided. If it's divided, if it's compound, then whether it's pinnately compound or palmately compound. Yeah. Meaning if the division is all across the midvein, or from the margin to one point on the leaf, which looks like a palm of a hand. And if it's pinnately compound, then we're going to look at whether the division is once or twice or thrice. So uni is 1, bi is 2, tri is 3. Just focus on those prefixes and not the whole word if it seems scary. But that's how we're going to describe the leaf. For flowers, we're going to count the number of petals, because we saw that dicots have 4 or 5 petals or multiples of them, and monocots have 3 petals or multiples of them. We're going to look at symmetry. We're going to see whether the petals are fused or free, and whether the flowers are bisexual, which means the male and female are in the same flower, or whether they have unisexual flowers, which means there's only male part or female part. And then we also look at the fruit, and we see whether the fruit is fleshy or it's dry. And if it's dry, whether it splits open, if we remember it's splitting open, or we know for a fact that it does not split open and has some other mechanism for dispersing its seeds. Okay. So this is how we're going to go. We're going to look at a tree. We're going to ask all of these questions, answer those questions, and then summarize it for the family that the tree belongs to. This is the first tree that we're looking at. Is everybody familiar with this tree? Or if anyone is not, could you please mention, so that I mean, we're going to look at all the features anyway.
So Salpeni is
So I shouldn't be. It's a Gulmohar tree, that's right. Okay. So let's start by looking at the leaves. Please try to, Nishant, I think your mic is making noises. Yeah, so we're going to look at what is the leaf arrangement. And when we see leaf arrangement, we are not looking here. We're looking at the main branch. Yeah, we're not looking at leaflet arrangement. We're looking at leaf arrangement. And this is a whole leaf. So we're seeing these structures. Yeah, and how they are arranged. Okay. And then we're going to look at leaf type. Is this a simple leaf or a compound leaf? Whether it has...
It's compound leaf.
Yeah, whether it has 1 divisions or 2 divisions. And we're going to answer this question or summarize.
2 divisions.
Yes, very good, Gangotri. Fantastic. Okay, now let's look at the flower. The picture seems a bit hazy, but please make do with it. Now, it's an old flower, so we don't really see the male parts, but these red ones are the male parts, and this center thing is a female part. Yeah, so it's a bisexual flower. I want you to mainly note whether the petals are free or fused, and what's the symmetry, whether it can be divided in any number of planes, or whether it can only be divided in one plane, along one plane, and to find 2 same parts.
It is a zygomorphic.
It is zygomorphic, yeah.
It is can be divided in five parts.
You think it's divided in 5 planes? Okay. Some people are saying it's radial. Some zygomorphic is bilateral symmetry. So some people think it's free petals is, I think everybody's getting that right. All right. So we have observations on our flowers. Fantastic. Hold on to those thoughts. Now we look at the pod. What do you think? Does it have any pulp? Is it fleshy or is it dry?
Dry.
Dry. Fantastic. And does it dehisce? Does it split open? Is it dehiscent? Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, now we summarize everything. Do we see any structure at the leaf base? I have a leaf right here. Just to avoid going back on the slides, it has a swollen leaf base. That's what's noteworthy about it. Then the leaf arrangement. Did everybody get it right? The alternate leaves? Yes, I do see alternate in the chat box. I'll just go back in the slides to verify this. Okay. So alternate is when 1 leaf, 1 leaf, 1 leaf, 1 leaf. You know, there's only 1 leaf at a node and the next leaf is only at the next node. There's gap between 2 leaves. Yeah. So we see that here. There's 1 leaf here, 1 leaf here. The second, third leaf is here, fourth leaf is here. So they're alternate. Correct? So we go back and we say the leaf arrangement is alternate. We know that the leaf type is compound. It's a divided leaf. It's a pinnately compound. Why do we say it's pinnately compound? Because the divisions are across the whole main vein. Yeah. It's not like this, which is a palmate leaf. That's why it's a pinnately compound leaf. Yeah. It's everything, all the sections are paired on it. And the divisions are 2. Again, going back on the slide, I should have done this a bit differently. Right. So we want to reach this small section and we're starting here. So this is the first cut, or this is the first cut that I give. I reach this section. There are more divisions here to do. And I give a second cut and I reach the leaflet. Right? So I divided the leaf twice to reach the smallest unit on that structure, which is why it's a bipinnately compound or twice divided leaf. Now flowers, the number of petals are 5. Symmetry, however, is not radial, even if it has 5. Suppose we divided it in this plane, we get 2 same sections. But if we divide it in this plane, then this kind of petal is not found anywhere else. There's 1 odd petal. Yeah, that doesn't allow us to divide the flower in more planes than one. Does that make sense?
Could you please repeat once again this?
Yeah. So you see this petal and
Yes.
compare these two petals.
Okay.
The shape is different. It's bigger. The color is different. So we can only divide the flower in this plane where we have this one part and this one part, and only then they're equal. If we divide it in this plane, then this part is not equal to this part. Yeah, that's why this is not radial symmetry, even though it has perfect 5 petals, because there's one odd petal. The symmetry becomes bilateral. So this is a feature that we sort of overlook. What is happening? Overlooked when you're trying to divide the flower. So again, reiterating that we have to observe very carefully and take everything that we see into consideration when we're coming to our conclusion.
When you say one odd petal, do you mean it's
Yeah.
odd because it's the number 5, or it's
No.
odd because it's different from the rest?
Different from other petals. That's what odd means here.
And this is the case with every flower of the Gulmohar tree, that one petal
Yes.
is, wow.
Yes. Okay. Now, fruit, everybody got that right. It's a dry fruit. I mean, there's no pulp in it, and it splits open, either on tree or it falls down and then it's split open. So there's a feature that allows the fruit to open and shed its seeds. Sanjoli, I hope I said your name right. That petal is a mechanism for the flower to guide pollinators towards the center of the flower. It's to get more pollinators and to tell them that this is where you go. It's like a runway for the insects. That's why there's that odd petal. Many flowers have this feature, and some of them we can't see because of our human limited vision, but insects can see flowers differently than we do. There are many videos and photos that tell the difference between how humans see flowers and how animals or birds and insects and bats see flowers, and it's very cool. Bats don't see flowers, sorry, how they perceive flowers. Adosa also has these. Very good, Karnika. Good observation. It's a signboard that says entrance here. Not just signboard, literally is a runway and a ramp for the insect to come to the center where there's nectar and where the pollens are supposed to get dusted on its body. Anthers are opposite to the petal marker differently. That's right, Ishitira. Thank you for adding that. Okay, back to family. These are the features that we've listed from Gulmohar, and these are the features that apply to most plants quite broadly all over this family. Okay, leaves are alternate, very uniformly. Leaves are compound, so there is no plant in this family that has simple leaf. So if you come across a leaf, if you come across a plant that has a simple leaf, then you know that it does not belong to Gulmohar family. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Then the leaves can be once divided or twice divided. There are both of these options available. And some examples of once divided are our Bahava or Indian laburnum is one of the trees, and there's some others like Sita Ashok or True Ashok that also belongs to this family. Yeah, and the leaflets are paired. There's no odd number of leaflet at the tip. They're all pairs. It looks not so correct here, but they're always all in pairs. For flowers, the symmetry is radial or symmetry is bilateral. The flower is bisexual, which means both male and female are the same flower. There's no exception to that again. The petals are free. They're not fused. They don't form a cup. And there's this one odd looking, differently colored and sized petal in the flower. That is also uniform. Now, it may not be as vibrant as in Gulmohar. In fact, in the peacock flower, the unusual petal is actually smaller and more clawed than the rest of them. So it's not a rule that it looks different, as in color-wise it's different. It can be just size and shape also. And the fruits are dry. They are dehiscent, and it's called a seed pod. So this family comes under a big group of plants called legumes. And all legumes have these pea pods. Yeah. So this also has a pea pod. Now this is Gulmohar family, and some other members of this are True Ashok, like I mentioned, Indian laburnum, like I mentioned, orchid tree, like I mentioned, and peacock flower, like I mentioned. Now I'm going to talk about orchid tree only if somebody points something about it. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next family. I'll give you a minute to take in this chart.
Is it the
This is
leaf?
Rahul. Yes. Thank you, Rahul. What about the leaves though? Could you be more specific? Saisha also mentioned. So it's not so clear here, but Bauhinias or the orchid trees also have one petal where there are more markings. They aren't pinnate. Yes, Saisha, that's right. So these are actually unipinnately divided leaves. I don't have a leaf with me right now, but when you get your hands on the leaf, observe that there's a bulbous base here, like where it's attached to the tree. But there's one more bulb just below where this lobe leaf starts also, which means that's a leaflet and not a leaf. So in that way, in a very minute difference or observation, can you tell that this is actually a compound leaf and not a simple leaf? Do fused flowers also have odd petals, or just free? That's a good question, Rupali. Fused also have an odd petal, and an example could be tulsi, or like the whole family, actually, whole tulsi family. It has they're all fused together. They form a cup, but one section of the cup is like up here, and one whole petal is like up down here, like a tongue or like a cup. Marathi name of, or I mean, I hope that makes sense. So the odd petal in a flower can be in a fused one also. Marathi Hindi name is Kachnar or Kanchan for the orchid tree. Real, I hope that helps. Yes, they're like Apta. So Apta is also another species of Bauhinia, the genus Bauhinia. Hold on to that Ficus Krishna example, and we'll talk about it at the end, because this goes to the genetics of the plants. Hardwickia is not in this family because the flowers and the fruits are very... No, wait. I'll have to think a little bit about it. Farida, please hold on to that question as well. We'll come back to that later. Priyal, Kanchan and Apta are different species. So if you look at the photos of both of them, you can find the differences. They're mostly size of the tree, size of the leaves, size of the flower, the color of the flower, etc. Family is defined by morphology, genetics for both. That's a really good question. So earlier, when genetic methods were not devised, families were based on the morphology. What we are looking at is going to be based on morphology than genetics. So when genetics came into picture, they formed a whole different system of families, which is called APG, Angiosperm Phylogeny Group. And the arrangement, I mean, that has just rearranged all the species and all the families. So that this is an older system which is based only on the morphology. And I'm discussing this because it is useful on field. You can differentiate and classify plants based on what you're looking at. You don't have to go to a lab to look at the genetics. So that's why I'm using this method for this workshop. Okay, moving on to the next family. This is a tree that we're looking at. It's a pungam tree or currants or hungemara, or sorry, these are all the names that I know for the tree. So they're called Indian birch tree, beech tree. And coming to the leaves, sorry about the odd editing. There was a lot of kachra here. So please note the leaf arrangement and the leaf type. And we're going to answer the questions about the leaves, flowers, and fruits like we did for Gulmohar. You can start typing your answers if you want to keep them in the chat box. Alternate and compound, very good. Compound. Opposite arrangement. Priyal, we are looking not at these, but here. So there's a bulbous leaf base, which means it's a compound leaf. So leaf starts here. This whole thing is one leaf. And we're going to look at the arrangement of this structure and this structure and this structure and this structure. So what do you think now? What is the arrangement? Alternate leaves, compound. Very good, Harsha. Everyone who's saying alternate and bipinnate. Alternate and compound is correct. Paripinnate, odd leaflet. So pari is paired. If there's an odd leaflet, then it's imparipinnate. Thank you for noticing the odd leaflet. I'm very proud of you. Okay, fantastic. Beautiful. Now we'll go to the flowers. Do you think actually can't really tell the fusing of petals, so just look at the symmetry. That should be enough. Kanika, you're right. It has terminal leaflet. Now let's describe the flower. What symmetry? Bilateral. Harsha says bilateral. Saisha and also say bilateral. Any other thoughts? Does anyone think it's radial? Hey, racemose and bilateral. Yes. Good job, Ishita. Okay. Moving on to the pods. Has anyone seen pods of pungam open on the tree or under the tree? Yeah, good. I thought I was the only one who hadn't noticed it. Yes. Cool. Okay, now let's describe the features. Oh, I wanted to show you why the petals of pungam or this whole family are free. It appears all clustered and fused together, no? But it has these three different kinds of petals, which is a keel petal. Keel is basically that pointy, tapering thing and jointed. And because that petals is shaped like that, it's called keel petal. They actually have five. So there are two keel petals that are fused to form this keel. There are two wing petal, and there's a standard petal. So again, it has this big odd petal, and this is why. And they can all be plucked apart without harming the other, except for the keel which are fused. So everything is free, and that's why this also belongs to the group of free petaled flowers. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, now we describe the leaves again as having swollen leaf base. They were alternate, most of you were right. Again, I want to mention that when we look at leaf arrangement, if we have figured out it's a compound leaf, then we're not looking at the leaflets. We're not looking here. We're looking at the whole leaf and arrangement of the leaf on the branch of a tree. Yeah, please don't look at the leaflets once you know that it's a compound leaf. So the first and foremost thing to do is to verify or to figure out whether a leaf is a simple leaf or a compound leaf. This diagram is of a butterfly pea, yes. Okay, coming back to the leaves, the arrangement is alternate. I hope it makes sense why it's not opposite. The leaflets are opposite, and leaflets we don't look at the arrangement usually because that can vary a little bit. They can be slightly alternate, slightly opposite. They can be, they can vary a lot. So we only look at the leaf arrangement and not leaflet arrangement. Okay, the leaf is compound. It's pinnately compound because there are pairs, and it's unipinnately compound. So going back to this, and we have to reach here. We know the leaf starts here. So how many cuts would it take? Just one. That's why it's a once divided leaf. Is this making sense to everyone? I think people have suddenly gone a bit silent. And you all very fantastically also recognize the odd leaflet. Again, going back. There's only one leaflet at the end of the leaf, which is single. And if we count the number of leaflets, because there are very few, we can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's an odd number. So we know that at the tip, there's not a pair, but an impaired leaflet. Yeah. Oops. Flowers, like we saw in the diagram, There are 5 petals actually. The symmetry is bilateral, obviously. Petals are free and the flowers are bisexual. And the fruits, we discussed this briefly earlier when somebody asked a question. They are pods, they're dry, and they're dehiscent. They open, split open on their own. Yeah. Then we summarize all the characters that we see for the pea family or the Fabaceae family. Faba beans you might have heard of. It was actually also called butterfly family or Papilionaceae. Papillon is butterfly in French. But families are not supposed to be named after its appearance. So they scratched that and they named it after the genus Faba. So now it's called pea family. It also belongs to the leguminous group, of course. So it has these pods, which is called a seed pod, or the fruit type is seed pod, and it's dehiscent. The flowers have free petals and a bilateral symmetry, and they often look like butterflies. That's why the name came from. So when you see this one big petal and something coming out and this odd shaped flower, we can straight up, without looking at anything, go to the pea family or Fabaceae. And of course, the leaves are alternate. This is a very, very important feature to remember. The leaves are alternate, they're compound, and there is one odd leaflet at the tip. Why I'm stressing on alternate leaves is because we're going to look at one more family which has a similar structure of leaves, but the leaves are alternate. They're opposite to each other. I'm very sorry. Okay, so there's another family which has leaves that look quite similar, but the arrangement is opposite. And that is what sets this family apart, only based on leaves. That's why we need to remember that pea family has alternate leaves. Okay, is this clear? Can we move to the next family? More about, do currant pods have multiple seeds like pea? They can have 2, I think. I've seen some pods with 2, but they usually also have 1 seed. And it depends on the species, really, or even the genus. Multiple and single seed is not decided as a family definition. That's why I've not included it. If it was a feature, then it would be in this table. I hope that helps. Explain more about legume flowers. You mean the flowers of the pea family, Ramesh? Okay, I'll wait to hear from you. And I'll look at Harsha's question till then. Within a species, how much variability do you see in characteristics of leaf flowers over general geographic spaces? Is it genetically driven or also influenced by environmental plant? It is, there can be a lot of variability actually. For example, in one of the families that we'll look at today, which is the Bignoniaceae family. Sorry about the difficult name, but we'll look at it very with a lot of time, so don't worry about it. So that family has strictly compound leaves, but the compoundness can be unipinnate, bipinnate, tripinnate, palmate, all of them. So it depends on where that plant developed and what feature suited it best. And there can be a lot of variability, and there can also be exceptions. So the family will mention that this family has simple leaves. It has compound leaves, but can have 2 genera which have simple leaves, something like that. So there can be a lot of variability, and it's like learning French. You learn a rule, a grammar rule, and there are 5 exceptions to that. But the rule still applies widely. So it can still be a reliable feature to learn identifying plants in a broad sense. I hope that makes sense, Harsha. Yes, Ramesh, I'll come back to, sorry. Yeah, so there are some very complicated diagrams here, but this is all the petals teased apart from a blue pea flower. There's one petal, which is called a standard petal. There are 2 petals on the side. We'll try to find these. Okay, so this is the standard petal. There are 2 petals here, which are enclosed, and there are 2 more inside. So these are wings, and inside them are the keel petals. And this is a very general structure, but not every plant in this family will have these features, but there's this for sure. The standard petal is there for sure. So the general appearance of the flower is something like this, you know. So if a flower looks like that, we can, if the plant has a flower and looks like that, then we can safely put it into this family. I hope that helps. Okay. Some example, many of the plants that we eat belong to this family. Like indigo also belongs to this family, groundnut and fenugreek. And I would like you to think of some more examples that belong to this family. So you see all of them have this one odd leaflet. I don't know what's up with this. It might be a variegation perhaps. But they typically have an odd leaflet. And the number of leaflets, if you can count, if they're not too many, they would be 3, 5, 7, 9, like that. And there's this oddball flower here. And the leaves are clearly alternate. The arrangement is alternate. Difference between Fabaceae and Cisalpinaceae. We'll look at a table in the end, and that will clarify everything, Gauri. So please hold on to this thought, and we'll come to this for sure. Now, I hope we have the energy for the next family. I'm getting a bit nervous, honestly. I hope it's making sense to you. It takes time. I know it's a lot of information, but the more plants we observe and the more comfortable we get with identifying the leaf types, the easier it becomes. I promise. This is the next tree that we're going to look at. Would anyone like to put names that they know this tree by in the chat box? Yeah, rain tree. Yes.
Samanya, Samanya.
Samanya, yes. Rain tree, Vilayati Shirish, Gulabi Shirish, Vagamaram, yeah. Oh, wait, no, I know. So Vagamaram is actually Shirish, I think, which has yellow flowers. And it's a native tree. But this is an exotic tree with pink flowers. So it is not to be confused with Vagamaram. I very recently learned this distinction. And it's a, yeah, Albizia lebec is Vagai. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, common names can be confusing, and that's also why it has names like Vilayati Shirish and Gulabi Shirish, which is basically pink Shirish or foreigner Shirish. But they're completely different species. They also are in different genera. There's a lot of difference between the two of them. And Albizia lebec or Vagai is native. Okay, coming to the features. I'm sorry, it's not very clear, but this is the best photo I could find of the leaves. But please see here and figure out what arrangement the leaves have. The leaf starts here, of course. And here's one way how we looked at buds and flowers where they're growing on a branch that can tell you where the leaf begins, no? So this is where the inflorescence or the bunch of flowers has come out, and this is where the leaf is. So which means this is the axillary bud that has turned into a flower, and where axillary bud is where the flower begins. Sorry, where the leaf begins. So the leaf has begun here. This whole thing is a leaf. Okay, now I would like to see. That's a good question, Gangotri. Again, let's keep it for discussion in the end because it's not connected to the families. Let's focus on the families for now. Compound, bipinnate, even number of leaflets. Very nice, Tanmay. There, I would like you to look at the arrangement once more. I know it looks a bit confusing here, but please consider these two leaves. Even compound, alternate compound, bipinnate, alternate bipinnate. Looks opposite. It does look opposite. I'm sorry, it's not a great picture. But again, please consider these two leaves and these two leaves. Okay, I have no more photos of the leaves. I'm sorry. Okay, I hope you're not seeing opposite based on this arrangement, this This is not what we're looking at. We're looking here because this is where the leaf begins. And there's one leaf here and one leaf here. There's only one leaf coming out of a node. It looks confusing here, I agree. But there's still a little gap between the two nodes. So I implore you, look at this and this. Alternate swollen leaf base, compound, bipinnate. Yes, now you got it. People who've said opposite before, has your mind changed? Jaya has changed her mind, I see that. Are there still doubts about what kind of leaf arrangement this is? Alternate or opposite? Leaves are spirally arranged also. Yes, they can be spirally arranged. Ishita, that was answer to your question. We'll look at some examples later. Okay, coming to the flowers now. What do you see? This is a whole inflorescence. It's a bunch of flowers and there are many, many flowers. And this is a single flower. And when we look at it, from far, it appears like there's just one hairy bunch. Radial symmetry. Pre-petal radial. Fused flower. Okay, Padmaja. Is it a sign? I'm actually not sure. That's a good question, Saisha. Okay. Is it a flower with multiple ovaries? No, it's not. These are multiple flowers. It's actually a little odd for this family, but because we're familiar with this, I chose to look at this. And this is a pod. And it is not an umbel either. It's actually a cyme, a cymose, where flowers in the center bloom first and the buds remain on the outside. The fleshy pods, yes. Anything else about the pods? Do they dehisce? Has anyone seen rain tree pods split open? No. Yeah, they don't do that. Okay, so summarizing, this is actually based on acacia or bubble tree. Can you remember, have you seen a bubble tree with those yellow pom-pom-like flowers? Yeah, it has thorns. So many members of this family tend to have thorns. So that's why I've mentioned that we may find species or trees which do have thorns. They have leaves of an alternate arrangement. I'm sorry, the photo is not very clear, but the leaf arrangement is alternate. Leaf type is compound. They're pinnately compound, like so many of you mentioned, and they're bipinnately compound. So great job, everyone. Flowers, the number of petals are 5, like we could see. Symmetry is radial, and the petals are, they appear fused, yeah? And oops, sorry. And they're bisexual flowers. So I think I'm not very sure about this. I'm here to verify this really, but I'll share this observation with you. These flowers here, they might actually be just male flowers and the one in the center could be a female flower is my theory, but I'm not sure about this. I'll check this out and I'll share this with you. Okay, so summary. Oh, sorry. Fruits were fleshy and they were indehiscent. Okay, this is what we've observed in this particular individual. Yeah, now summarizing, this is the Mimosaceae or touch-me-not family, and the leaves are alternate, which I'm sorry we couldn't recognize very easily. And they're bipinnately compound. Yeah, and the trees are also they tend to be armed. They tend to have thorns, like I mentioned. The flowers, they have a fuzzy appearance, and they are in round or elongated cat's tail like bunches, and they're regular flowers. The symmetry is sort of radial. And the pods, the fruits, are seed pods, and they're segmented, and there's one seed in each segment. This is a very special type of pod that is found in this family, which has sections, compartments for each cell, and oftentimes each section comes out instead of the whole pod opening and splitting all of the seeds at once. And it's a special category of pods that can be found in this family, and it needs like some time to be observed. But if anybody has seen the fruits, the seed pods of touch-me-not, this one, you would know that that's something that happens. So Mimosis is the name of the whole family, and it has all types of plants. It can have climbers, it can have herbs, it can have shrubs, it also has trees. So touch-me-not is a trailing herb. It's a small herb. Yeah. Some more members of this are, of course, the touch-me-not, the powder puff that we see in so many gardens that the sunbirds love so much. This Chinese lantern plant that's found in very dry regions in the Deccan Plateau, typically. And the red beet tree, or these seeds, they come from a tree that belongs to this family, the Mimosa family. I don't have photos of the pods of Mimosa, but I have a nature journal entry that bottle brush also belongs to this family. That's a good conclusion, Parul. But the fruits and the leaves don't match the description of this family, so it's not put into this family. Rosary bead climber actually belongs to the previous family that we looked at, the pea family. Okay. So this is what the pods of Mimosa look like. Touch-me-not. It has this lining of hairy things, and when it's disturbed, then one section just comes off, and they're born like this. So each flower in this bunch actually turns into a fruit, a whole pod. So this is how it goes with touch-me-not. And this has a really good indication of the type of pod that I was trying to explain. Other white parts of the rain tree flower, not petals, they looked free. These white parts, they're actually male parts. They're the stamens, and these are the petals. And they're the sepals. Red beet tree in Marathi is called Thorla Gunja. Adnantara pods do break open, yeah. So some trees in this family, they have pods that dehisce. Some pods just fall down and, they get broken by some mechanical activity. And some of them, one section comes out like it happens in Mimosa or touch-me-not. So they have different ways of dehiscence or dispersal of seeds, but in general, they can be considered dry and dehiscent. A bit confusing this got, no? Okay, but we look at the whole, all of the families together and compare the leaves and pods and flowers, and we'll have a good idea of what we looked at. Loco weeds, I'm not sure what this is. I'm not familiar with this name. A similar seed pod, but I'm guessing they're Fabaceae members. Harsha, please, I would like to look at a photo of this. I'll also Google it later. Okay, I hope you can still hear me because I've changed my positions. And I'm going to move to the next member, a very beloved tree. Do you recognize this tree? Please put it in the chat box if you can. Jackfruit. Very good. Okay, so we have very less time actually. So we're going to move very quickly to looking at its leaves. Can you recognize the leaf type and leaf arrangement, please? Alternate, very good, real. Simple alternate, beautiful, fantastic. Yes, everybody's got it. Now this is a structure, this is a flower actually. I mean, each of these yellow dots that you see are one flower. This is a whole inflorescence or a bunch of flowers. And we see this as well. This is more clear, right? Each of these sections that we see, each of the cells, that's one flower. The white parts are the stigma or the sticky receptacle of a female flower. So these are all female flowers. This is a female inflorescence. And these are male flowers, and this is the male inflorescence. So jackfruit has separate male and female. You would often have seen something that like a jackfruit grows and it grows black and falls down. Have you noticed these features under a jackfruit tree or on a jackfruit tree? Yeah. So those shriveled blackened parts are actually male inflorescences. So males bloom, they attract a lot of flies. The flies come, take the pollen, and the male's flowers and inflorescence job is done. So they dry and fall down, and they turn black like that. And then these pollen from the males are taken to the female flowers on the same tree. So jackfruit is a tree that has both male and female inflorescence of flowers on the same tree. And only the female ones, these ones, turn into a fruit. Okay, so now we know it has separate male and female flowers. And we know that they're on the same tree. And we of course know what the fruit is like. It's a fleshy fruit. It's a compound fruit. The whole inflorescence, many flowers fuse together to form their fruit. Yeah, so it's a compound fruit, which we know. Okay, so summarizing all our features, there is one feature that I missed noticing, which is this one. It's a stipule that's found around the leaf buds and also around the flowers. So it's not very clear, but you see this coat on the inflorescence, that's also a stipule. So this stipule is a very prominent feature and very commonly, very widely seen on the members of this family, including jackfruits. Yeah. So, and because it protects the bud, and it's scaly, which means it's dry and it just falls down once its job is done. So it's like a scale and it's a stipule. So that's why the name for this is bud scale stipule. But the key is to notice this at the tip of the branches. You'll often see the tip is covered with this reddish or slightly different colored covering. And that is actually the stipule before the bud has come out and before it has fallen down. Yeah, so bud scale stipule is a very important feature and quite easy giveaway for the family that the plant might belong to, which is this family. There's latex present, of course. Who can separate white milky latex from jackfruit? Yeah, leaf arrangement is alternate and simple, as you smart people recognize. So we don't have to worry about the compound categories here at all. Everything is sorted. Flowers, there are no petals in these flowers. They're very reduced. They only have what is required to get the job done. So they only have the male parts and the female parts, and then no petals. And so there's no question of symmetry and no questions of whether they're free or fused. And the flowers, most notably, are unisexual. They're separate male flowers, separate female flowers in bunches, and both the bunches are found in the same tree. Yeah. Fruit is fleshy, and it's obviously it doesn't dehisce, it doesn't open on its own. Animals come and open it, and then they take this, they eat the fruit, they take the seed away, and so on. So this is our fig family or Moraceae family, and it's again characterized by simple leaf. There very widely alternate, but there's some members which have opposite leaves. And there's milky latex, and they have this bud scale stipule. So that prominent stipule is present. Here you see it very clearly. This green thing is actually a stipule. Now, the flowers are like small fruits. They don't have any special appearance, but they do have fragrance. And male and female flowers are separate, and there are no petals. Petals are absent. And the fruit is composite and fleshy. These are the features of the fig family. Is it clear? There are a lot of questions, I see them. But I have to cover one more family and then we'll take the questions. Other members of the family are mulberry or shahtut or tutti, which are these beautiful fruits that we love to eat. Or paper mulberry, an invasive exotic species that has come out everywhere, especially around wherever there's nothing else growing. These huge trees just grow and they're very fast growing, so they just cover the whole land. So that paper mulberry also belongs to this family. And people, country fig or the cluster fig or umber, it also belongs to all figs belong to this family. Because that's why it's called a fig family. Okay, now coming to the last family on our agenda today, is this tree. Have you seen this tree? Are you familiar with this tree? It is not Palash. One thumb of rule is when Palash is flowering, there'll be no leaves or very less leaves on the tree. So it is the African tulip, it's not the flame of the forest. It's also called fountain I think. Yeah, Spathodia, African tulip is correct. I actually have like a comparison post on our Season Watch social media that you can look at, which compares Spathodia and flame of the forest, or African tulip and flame of the forest. Please take a look at it. And another thing that we know is there's a saying Parsala Pana Teen. So Palash or flame of the forest has 3 leaflets. Do you see 3 leaflets here? There are more than 3 definitely, right? So that's why it's not Palash. Okay, and this is the fruit of the tree. So again, when we look at a tree, different features will bring different memories and different ideas and different names to our minds. But it's important to combine all of the observations that we see from a plant to come to a conclusion. Right? So that's why we take time to observe all the features and then we give out a name. Palash and flame of the forest are same. African tulip is a different plant. Okay, now let's look at the leaves. Can you figure out leaf type and leaf arrangement? There are new leaves coming out here, which means that is the axillary bud. So the leaf begins here. This is where the leaf begins. This is one leaf. Yeah? It is imparipinnate, very good. Compound, once divided, fantastic. Kanika, can you also think what leaf arrangement is, whether it's opposite or alternate? Some people are saying opposite. Swollen leaf base, fantastic. Real opposite arrangement. And what is the leaf type, real? How many divisions? How many divisions does it take? Alternate. 1 division, fantastic. Okay. Let's look at the flower. Can you figure out the symmetry and whether the petals are fused or free? The fused petals, very nice. Yes. Yes. Bilateral, fused, bisexual, fantastic. Great. I'm going to move on because we're short of time. These are the fruits. And they have no pulp because they split open and fallen. Yeah. So they are dehiscent and dry. Very beautiful. Everybody's getting it. Fantastic. Okay, now summarizing, swollen leaf base as Priel always makes a note to mention. That's fantastic. Leaf arrangement actually is opposite. Some of you got it, but it's not very clear from here. So it's bound to happen, but this family typically has opposite leaves. And they are compound leaves, pinnately compound and unipinnately compound. And they also have an odd leaflet. Okay. In flowers, the number of petals is 5. It's fused, so it's a bit difficult to figure out how many petals, but you can see like deeper grooves in the petals to see how many petals there are. Yeah. Symmetry is bilateral. Many of you got that right. Fused and they're bisexual. Fantastic. So all of you mentioned all of these things in the chat box. Fruits are dry and dehiscent. Now summarizing the family, the leaves are compound. They're like all kinds of compound actually. So I've not mentioned which kind of compound. They're oppositely arranged and they have an odd leaflet. So the leaflet number will always be 5, 7, like that. Yeah. Flowers are cup-shaped, very typically. Petals are fused to form this cup, and the symmetry is bilateral. It can also be radial, depending on what species it is. So symmetry is not like a very deciding feature, but cup-shaped flower is a prominent feature. And this fruit type is called a capsule. We did not discuss this, so you need not like remember and know this, but it's a dry and dehiscent capsule or fruit. And the seeds are very typically winged. So this center heart-shaped part is the seed, and it has this nice peppery wing to make the seeds fly away. So that's the way these seeds are dispersed. Other members of this family are Dabubia, Jacaranda, and these ornamental exotic things. All of them are exotic actually, that belong to this family. Yeah, all of them have cup-shaped flowers, as you may have noticed. And the leaves of Jacaranda often look like Gulmohar, but I wanted to look at this tiny pointy thing that it has at the tips of each of the branchlet of the leaf. And that is an imparipinnate leaf, an odd leaf, which Gulmohar does not have. I have a leaf again here. This is the tip of Gulmohar. There is no odd leaflet, but Jacaranda's leaflets have. So that's one way of telling when there are no flowers, whether a tree in your city is a Jacaranda or a Gulmohar. Okay. Now we come to the very awaited summary. These are all the features of a plant that we looked at: the canopy, branching pattern, bark, and then we looked at great details of leaf type, flowers, and fruits. And we looked at 5 plant families, and they can be easily divided into categories based on whether they're simple leaves or compound leaves, and whether they're alternate or opposite. So we looked at one family that has simple leaf, which is the fig family, and we looked at 4 families that have compound leaves. And these compound leaves were arranged alternately in the Gulmohar family, in pea family, and Touch-me-not family. So this whole family is strictly compound alternate sort of family. And one family that we looked at which has opposite leaves, oppositely arranged compound leaves, which is the Jacaranda family. And here's the table that I wanted to show you. And these red ones are the features that we can remember from each of the family. So Gulmohar family has a flower with one oddly shaped colored petal. Pea family has butterfly-like flowers. Touch-me-not family have these fuzzy, very powder puff brush-like flowers. Fig family have separate male-female flowers, and the fruit is big, fleshy, composite fruit. And the Jacaranda family has opposite leaves. So among all the leaf types that we looked at today, this is the only family which had opposite and compound leaves. Yeah, and it has the winged seeds. So any plant that you come across in this series, especially if you find winged seeds, it's quite likely to be this. And by wings, I mean this peppery thin covering that that plant has, the seed has. Yeah. And this is one very quick quiz. There are 2 questions. This is one and there's one more after this. I want you to take like 2 minutes to look at the features and think what family this would belong. Now, this belongs to families that we have looked at so far. There is nothing new. Okay, so I would like you to try and identify. If you know the name of the plant, please don't tell us, because the focus right now is to look at the family. Pea family, many of you got it right. It can take some time for sure to figure this out. Please don't feel disheartened if you can't get it right immediately. We can take our time with this. Zabeen is not jacaranda because if you look at the flower, jacaranda will have a cup-shaped flower, and this is not really a cup. There's one structure like this and one structure like this in the flower. So that sets it apart from jacaranda. And jacaranda is typically blue, purple color. It is Fabaceae. Fantastic. Great job, everybody who got it. Good job, Zabeen, also you got it. Beautiful. There's one more family that we want to look at. We talked extensively about this plant actually, but let's see if you can figure out the family. Touch me not. Tanmay, yay! I'm so proud of you. Mimosaceae. Everybody was saying Mimosaceae, touch me not. You're absolutely right. These powder puff flowers just give it away. I hope that was your basis also. Fantastic. Those who have not got it yet, please don't feel disheartened, because this is what it's like. Talking about identifying plants is like all fun and games, but actually identifying them can be a bit tricky. So we need a lot of patience and practice. So some things to do is to go out and try to look at the leaf types and try to identify where the leaf begins, what type of leaf, what level of compoundness does it have, and so on. And once you have a practice with that, you can actually go to looking at the families and all the features of the families that we looked at today. We can start with these 5 families and getting familiar with those and putting our plants into these families. Yeah. So I hope this helps very quickly. Engaging with flora can look like this. You can go for tree walks, do tree journaling. You can look at citizen science platforms, like upload your observations, and that is a great way of learning about the plants around you. And I work with this project called Season Watch, obviously is highlighted here. And phenology, I told you that I'll very quickly, briefly talk about it. It's a study of life cycle events in a living organism, of a living organism. So from birth till death, all the phases that the organism goes through, observing them and documenting them and looking at their cyclicity is called phenology. So there's a branch, of course, for the trees called tree phenology, where we look at these stages in a tree's or plant's life cycle, which include new leaves, then these leaves mature, then they are shed, flowers come, they blossom, flowers turn into fruits which are unripe at first, then they ripen, and the fruit dies. And this cycle goes on and on till the plant dies. So this cyclicity can be studied in this tree phenology, and it can help us understand the ecology of a region. It can help us document and observe plant-animal interactions, because plant animals visit certain stages of plants' lives. It's very helpful in also invasive species management, because if you want to effectively remove a species from a region, it's best to do it before the plant has flowered and fruited, so that there are no seeds into the soil from where the plants are removed. Yeah. And climate change study, because flowers and fruits, like we discussed briefly earlier, they appear in response to seasons. It's very it's helpful to use that as a proxy for how well the seasons are changing, whether they're arriving sooner or later than historically known, etc. So climate change and its impact on the living world can be studied through phenology, or the flowering and fruiting moraceae of the trees. Yeah. And this is what a phenology of a tree would look like. This is our red silk cotton, and these are the stages of leaves: new leaves, mature leaves, dying leaves, buds and open flowers or bloom flowers, unripe fruit, ripe fruit, and open fruit. So all of these stages and the documentation comes in phenology of red silk cotton. Now, season watch, it's a bit big topic, and I'm doing another webinar on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I'll share the link to register to this in the chat box. And if you'd like to learn more about how to use Season Watch to look at trees around you, please join that webinar, or please reach out to me later if you can't join on the Wednesday, and I'll be very happy to tell you more information about it. Yeah. And these are the resources that I told you, that some of the good books to refer and websites to follow to identify our plants. I'll share, you can screenshot this right now, or I can share this with you later through the presentation. And some resources that Season Watch also makes to help people understand plants. I'll share a link to ordering this also in the chat box. And that's about it for our workshop today. I think, can we extend about 10-15 minutes to answer all of your questions? Is that okay with you?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, cool. I'll first put the links that I mentioned into the chat box. And I'll stop sharing. Just give me a second. I'll come to all of your questions. Okay. So everyone, please take a look at your chat box right now. I am sending 3 links. First link is to Season Watch webinar. It's a form. And you can fill it out to register. I'll send you the meeting link as soon as you registered, rather just before the webinar on Wednesday. Second link is to ordering the Season Watch Pocket Guide. And third one is, if you conduct tree walks, if you're an educator, then you can, fill out that form, and we can send you some resources, some printed pocket guides for free. Thank you so much for the compliments on this session. I'm really glad you found it helpful. I had great fun. You're a great audience, great students, great learners. And I'll look at the questions now. Zeal say that jackfruit male and female inflorescences occur separately, but on the same tree. That's correct, Zeal. You got that right. Second is how to detect trees which is not native and not non-invasive and got balanced with local ecology. So there's a very widely accepted list of invasive species. And you can actually look for a book called Guests Who Never Left. And it's a good compilation of invasive species in India. So we need to strictly avoid those species from planting. But there are exotic species which did not harm but got naturalized into our habitats. And like Gulmohar is one of them, rain tree is one of them. They're not invasive, and animals, like generalist bird species, are learning to use them also. Many of the fruits that we eat actually are naturalized into our area. Sitafal, Ramfal, what else? Chiku, all of these trees are actually exotic, but they've become a part of our local diet and ecology also to some extent.
Jackfruit also is not native, but it is.
No, jackfruit is native.
Jackfruit is native. Okay.
It is native.
Okay, thanks.
Jackfruit is named after Chakka, the Malayalam name for it. So it's very much native, found in southern western, very wet Western Ghats. Possible to differentiate tea and Gulmohar families without flowers? Yes, Gauri. Sorry, I didn't spend much time on the table, but in Gulmohar, the leaves will have pair at the tip, and in tea there'll be one leaflet. So that odd leaflet differentiates Gulmohar family and pea family. And it's very important to note that odd leaflet. If for an approximate guess, there's just one thing we can look for to identify the tree, what should it be? Leaves. That's why we spend so much time looking at the leaves today, Parul. That's the answer. There are a few more questions up, scrolling up. The PPT will be shared, I think. I'll make sure that all of the people who registered get an email from us, which will have the PPT. Okay, I think I've covered the. There were some questions about the families when we were covering them. Male inflorescence is yellow and female is white. Zeal, yes, that is like a general way of looking at it. This was about the fig. And it looks yellow. Male look yellow because they have those pollen tips on the inflorescence, and that's why it looks yellow. And the females have white stigmas or the receptacles where the pollen fall. And they're white. That's why there's that difference. And there's only a small window where we can see this white and yellow color on the inflorescence. Otherwise, the color is not a very foolproof method. The size is, of course, different. Female inflorescences are much bigger, and they're also born on very thick stalks because that stalk is later to bear one whole big fruit, the jackfruit. And the male stalk are very thin and lanky, and they're going to fall off soon. All figs have inverted flowers. So fig, as in the ficus genus, they have inverted flowers. But other members of fig family, all of them don't have inverted flowers. In fact, jackfruit, breadfruit, somebody asked if the breadfruit tree belongs to this, and the ficus elastica or the rubber fig, it also belongs to this family. So jackfruit has
Sai, a quick question about
yeah.
breadfruit. And how would you categorize the leaf of a breadfruit?
Breadfruit tree has a lobed leaf. So it has these incisions, but they don't reach till the center of the midrib. And they don't divide the leaf into a leaflet. So it's a simple leaf, but it's lobed.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Stipule is also the same as the first leaf upon germination? No, Sabine. So first leaf upon germination is found only when it germinates. And there are no stipules usually during that time of the plant's life. Stipules are leafy appendages that cover new leaf when the plant is much older. And first germination leaf, they don't stay on the plant also. I hope that helps. They're not the same, is a short answer. Ficus elastica also have bud scale stipule, Rahul. All the members of this family have bud scale stipule. They may look different. Ficus elastica has this red tip, at the branch. That is the red thing is the bud scale stipule. Is the powder puff same as bottle brush? No, it's not. Bottle brush has a bottle cleaner brush shaped inflorescence. Powder puff is round. And the leaves are very, very different. Bottle brush has simple leaves. I'm sure you all go out and observe these differences between plants now. Make a list of, how we answered these questions for all the plants. Maybe try doing that. Write how the leaves are, write how the flowers are, and then think what are those two related? Are they same? Do they belong to the same family and so on? And that should actually answer a lot of questions that we have today. Okay, I will not go further up. I think I've answered. Thank you, Madhu, for finding the link. English link to season watch does not work. Is it not working? Let me just check. I'll put another link. Hold on. Actually, could you reach out to me or could you just visit Season Watch's website? That should give you the link to ordering the English versions. Carambola, bilimpi, rayaura have fruits, flowers closer to the trunk. They are cauliflorous. That's correct, Padmaja. That's a great conclusion. Fantastic. Okay, I hope I've not missed. How to identify mahogany trees family? Are they related to Buddha's coconut? No. Buddha's coconut belongs to a family that is same as the wild almond, Sterculia fetida. Buddha's coconut also used to be Sterculia elata, I think. And mahogany belongs to the neem family, actually. We didn't see that family today. We didn't explore it. It's an odd family a little bit. But one feature of neem family is the oblique leaf. So typically, both sides of the leaves will be same. They'll be symmetrical, But in mahogany and neem, one side will be like this, other will be straight. So that asymmetric leaf is what
Oh yeah,
gives
yeah,
away.
yeah. The one closer to the base would be
Yeah.
sort of shorter. Got you. And
Yes.
can you also take up the ficus crispinae one?
Ah,
How
ficus.
do we? Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I may not be able to find it right now. Could you
No,
repeat that?
what I was asking was, how would we go about with these? You showed a flow chart, right? It was pretty much a deduction that we made. So how do we go about it when we are trying to identify varieties rather than basic species themselves?
Right. So actually, species level and variety level is done with the genetic studies, and you just have to look at this website called Plants of the World, POWO. Q is a website created by the Q Botanical, like Q Institute, and they can tell you that website tells you whether a plant is currently accepted as a variety or it's a different species and so on. So there's no way to morphologically differentiate between them. It has to be the genetic level.
Okay, okay, got it, got it. Thank you.
Taxonomic keys, yes, that requires introduction to botany and the terminology in botany first. That's why I didn't cover it in this workshop. But yes, taxonomic keys are basically these big books that sort of cover. Wait, I'll just show you one botanical key if you would like to. There's this famous book called Flora of Presidency of Bombay, created by Theodore Cook. And it is, I'll open it in front of you also. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, this is the book. I have it in my drive if anybody wants to access it. Flora of Bombay. And this is volume 1. There are 3 volumes. These are the families that it covers. So this is based on a classification system that we kind of followed today. And it begins with plants with free petals, and then it goes to fused petals and then no petals. Yeah, so all of these plants, this starts with free petals and then this is to fused petals. And it describes families. So this is the first family, Ranunculaceae. It tells you what kind of plant it has, annual or perennial, and they're more rarely shrubs. So that means they're mostly herbs, but rarely shrubs. And leaves are radical or alternate. I think they mean radial. So, what is the generally accepted, widely found leaf type or leaf arrangement type? Entire or divided. There are no stipules. Stipule 0 means stipule absent, or adnate to the petiole, meaning they're sticking to the. So there are these terms like adnate and hypogynous. So it doesn't help to begin looking at floras, and that's why I didn't show them today. But here you see there are features, and if it's not present in the specimen that you have, then you skip the whole part and you move to the next feature. And based on that, you get your genera. You can look into each genus under that species and then find the family, the species that your plant belongs to. So these keys, that's how these keys work. And then each species also is described in good detail. And it generally requires all features like leaves, flowers, dissecting the flower, etc. So keys can be a little tricky, even for botany students to follow, like people who are formally learning it, the subject. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very helpful to follow these keys. And that's why there's so much emphasis these days to create these easily followable resources like pocket guides and field guides and books like that, which have a simpler language, photos, etc. But thanks for the suggestion, Bhakti. Do we have any questions in
I think nothing on YouTube as such.
Nothing on YouTube?
No.
Would you please send me the PDF link, which book you have suggested that the which exotic trees got accustomed with the.
It has been put here. Wait. Was it Gangotri who asked this question, is it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I'm tagging you in that message. You can find it here. I hope you've got that message. Just look for guests who never left. It's quite a catchy title for exotic invasive species.
Okay, directly on Google, I should search it.
Yeah,
Guest who never left.
yeah. I'm pasting it again. It's a very nice illustrated book. It's quite pleasant to look at. Yes, Ashwin, the PDF will be sent and you will have time to look at all the slides at your leisure.
Could you tell what kind of a leaf Monstera is?
That's a good question. Monstera also has lobed leaves. So it has these inundations in the blade, but they don't exactly divide the leaf always. And even if the leaf is cut into sections, those sections are not functional separate units like leaflets are. So it's still a simple leaf, but it can be dissected or not dissected in the botanical sense, but it's a dissected leaf that's divided into sections and it has these holes sometimes and it just lobed. I hope that helps.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sayee, for this engaging and very insightful lecture or a workshop. We'll meet soon again. We'll be having a few more lectures in this series. We are planning those, so stay tuned and keep checking the Ecological Society's social media. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook. So we'll be posting about the next workshops or lectures on that social media.
All right.
Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
stop.
you, Niket.
Yeah, we'll stop here.
Yeah, the session is officially closed. Please take a break and take a walk and look at trees when you do.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.